Our main guy finally snaps back to reality, remembering he was just chilling in his room playing a game. This guy's name is Suzumiya. He was just a normal 21-year-old. Now he's stuck in the middle of a massive forest and is totally lost. Maze Art Online is the massive game everyone's obsessed with, and Suzumiya just graduated college only to spend every waking second inside it. He'd been grinding for 3 days straight and his head was absolutely killing him. But even with the whole squad there, the item they needed wouldn't drop, so he kept pushing through the exhaustion until he suddenly felt his body go weightless. Suzumiya finally wakes up in this super weird spot, and even though he's just in his normal clothes, he feels crazy light and has zero clue where he is. He lets out a massive sigh of relief, figuring the whole nightmare was just a dream. Staying awake for 4 days straight was clearly too much, and he must have just passed out. Out of nowhere, he spots these weird creatures munching on something and giving him a super suspicious look. These 6-legged dogs were definitely not friendly, and they immediately lunged straight at him, barking their heads off. But they didn't actually go for Suzumiya, and those 6-legged dogs just zoomed right past her instead. He figured he must be a hardcore gamer since he's even seeing game monsters in his sleep. Think of it like a weird status effect from a game suddenly popping up in the real world. Out of nowhere, a black status screen showing all his stats popped up right in Suzumiya's face, and even though he jumped back, he definitely recognized what it was. A status window just popped up out of nowhere, and he wondered if it appeared just because he said the word status, as he started checking the whole thing out. Sumiyar took one look at him and realized his MP was totally off the charts compared to everyone else. He wondered how much mana normal people had in this world, especially since his screen showed he recharges 10% of his magic every single minute. Most people in this world only have 10 magic points, so Zamaya was pretty sure he was built different. But honestly, none of that even mattered because the whole thing was just a dream. Then the screen flashed even more info, revealing that Suzumiya is actually an alien with insane talent for magic, martial arts, and a whole lot more. He's actually a rank 10 alien, and since his powers are based on his level from his old world, it even decides how much talent he has for magic. Our hero was totally lost, wondering how this wasn't just a dream when everything felt way too real. Those weird 6-legged dogs just burst out of the trees again, and now 3 of them are headed straight for the clearing where Suzumiya is. As one of the dogs growls, our hero realizes this world is way too realistic, especially these terrifying hounds. He realized he had to get up and bolt right now, because even if it's just a dream, scary stuff is still terrifying. He was sprinting way faster than normal, totally shocking himself. Was this all because of that crazy alien skill? Suzumiya realized these dogs were just as fast as him, and as they stayed right on his heels, he started freaking out over what was wrong with these creepy green things. He finally scrambles up a tree and sits in a high branch, totally out of reach from the dogs. Suzumiya looked down at the dog and laughed, feeling totally hyped about his crazy new jumping skills. He couldn't just sit around forever, so he had to find a way out of these woods and checked his skill menu again, hoping he had some better powers hidden away. One of his powers was analysis, which let him scan anything he looked at, and Susumi figured he could use it to see the stats of every monster he ran into. Our hero just realized something huge. Since he doesn't need to touch anyone to use his skill, he can literally fire it off right this second. The moment Suzumiya used his skill on the dog, a floating screen popped up showing all its stats and power levels. This monster was an F rank, and even though our hero had no clue how strong that was, this dog was all muscle and 0 brains, so he really didn't want to mess with it. Suzumiya checked his other skills and found out he learns magic way faster than normal, gets a massive boost to fire spells, and is even a total sword master. He still had no clue how to use magic and was standing there with totally empty hands. Zumaya reached for the system window to see what he could do, first trying to open his inventory and then pull an item out. The second try actually worked, and suddenly, something started appearing all around him. He looked at the system window and saw the numbers had suddenly flipped to a 0 and 1012, but there wasn't a single clue about what it meant. Suzumiya was hyped because he knew he was onto something and definitely had a secret power. But what was the deal with this random number? It turns out, this is the absolute limit of his. But if 1012 is his max inventory limit, he's basically got nothing, and there might be secret commands he hasn't even found yet. Like maybe you need spells to use magic, so Suzumiya points his hand at the dog and tries to blast it with a fireball. That was a total fail, but the hero said it'd be way cooler if the fire just came from his hands and boom, his palm burst into flames. He dodged to the side, realizing he probably just had to picture the spell in his head to make the magic work. He hunkered down in the tree and gripped the trunk, figuring he might as well just go for it. Suzumiya tried to picture a fireball in his hand that was way bigger than the one before. Our hero realized this was getting seriously interesting, and he figured he'd be an idiot not to have some fun with these new powers. He just had to picture a fireball in his hand and blast that green wolf, and boom, it actually worked. The fireball slams into the wolf's side, knocking him flat as his whole body is instantly swallowed by flames. Suzumiya scrambled down from the tree and shouted that he actually pulled it off, clenching his fists in pure excitement. The hero shouted that it was awesome, and even heard some music playing, but then something totally caught his eye. The system screen pops up in front of him again, and he realizes he just leveled up, gaining 500 more mana, and bumping his fire magic up by 1. He whipped his head back toward the green wolf while Susumi screamed that the fire was spreading fast. He even got burned by the fire and started looking all over the place, asking where the heck the river was. Suddenly he realized he could actually use magic, so he tried to picture water blasting out just like a fire hose. Susumiya blasts water straight from her hands to put out the flaming wolf, and her water magic column officially goes up by 1. He felt something drain out of him, and realized he was burning through magic points. But even though he wasn't at full power, the spell felt totally weak and cheap. He checks his inventory and finds 2 new items waiting for him, a wolf and a plant. Suzumiya sat straight up on the ground and laughed, saying that all of this felt way too real to be a dream. He's read a ton of stories about heroes getting sent to other worlds, and now it looks like Suzumiya is actually living one. After losing his parents in a car crash 2 years ago, he slumped over with his hands on his knees, realizing that even though he was stuck in another world, he had absolutely no clue how to get back home. Since you're stuck here, you might as well have a blast, and Susumiya's just hoping this world doesn't turn out to be a total drag. Out of nowhere, a massive scream rings out, and our hero instantly jumps up and sprints toward the sound to see if anyone's actually there. He rushed toward the screams and was totally shocked to see a pack of 6-legged dogs tearing into the caravan. 2 guys fought off the dogs with a spear and a sword, but the beasts just kept barking and growling, refusing to back down. Susumiya took a closer look and realized these were actually green dogs, so he knew he had to jump in and save those people. He knew water magic wouldn't reach from that far, and if he used fire, he'd just end up torching the whole cart. Susumiya realized he was totally backed into a corner. Even though he'd never done anything like this before, he knew he had to give it a shot. Our hero drops low and touches the ground, focusing his mind on picturing a sharp spear tip to start things off. He leaps up and swings his hand to guide the spell, slamming a stone spear straight into the wolf as Susumiya shows off his earth magic. The stone spear slammed into the wolf's side and knocked him flat, but it completely shattered, and the hero realized his weapon was done for. Somehow those green dogs got totally thrown off and stopped their attack, giving our guy the perfect chance to catch his breath. The guys by the wagon finally saw their opening to strike, and one of them lunged forward to spear a wolf. Susumiya was totally hyped, but as the green wolf growled, one of the guys shouted that there was still one massive wolf left, and they'd have to team up to take it down. The guys started teaming up in pairs, with one lunging with a spear and the other swinging a sword. They teamed up to smash the last wolf together, landing a massive hit that finally took the green dog down for good. The guys finally sat down to catch their breath after their big win. But just when they thought they were safe, Suzumiya suddenly popped up right in the clearing next to them. Susumiya was seriously impressed when the guys thanked the hero for saving them, but they were also totally confused because the kid walked out of the forest without looking like an adventurer, leaving everyone. He tells them he just woke up in the woods with no clue how he got there, thinking this is the perfect cover story. One guy guessed he probably got jumped by monsters, but honestly, he looked totally fine. Susumiya shut that idea down immediately. Then the man shouted out for someone named Kirok. A blonde guy with a mustache steps out of the carriage, thanking Susumiya for saving the caravan, and introducing himself as a merchant named Karak. Susumiya introduces himself and the guy is so shocked he asks him to say it again, so the kid just tells him to call him Kade instead. The merchant offered to help the hero with his amnesia and prove his identity for a price, but Susumiya didn't have a single coin on him. Karak figured the hero lost his gear in the woods and warned him he'd never get into the city without an ID. So he handed over a bag of coins to cover his guild fees and deposit. Suzumiya peeked inside the bag and realized it was completely stuffed with shiny silver coins. The kid asks if silver coins are enough, but the merchant thinks he's being cheap. Suzumiya actually had a totally different plan in mind. It's pretty obvious now that our guy... Suddenly, this blonde girl in a black and white dress steps out of the carriage and asks him if he's Katie-san. The girl introduces herself as Sally, the boss of the Aina City Guild, and says we can just call her Sally. The receptionist didn't want to leave Suzumiya behind, so she offered to bring him along, and the merchant was totally cool with it. As soon as the guy hopped into the cart, Sally started spilling the whole story from the start, telling him they were cruising down a forest road near Aina. Judging by her story, they were right outside the forest south of Ain City, and since monsters are always lurking there, Sally and the merchant made sure to bring some bodyguards for protection. Suzumiya also figured out how the money works here, where iron is the cheapest, followed by silver, gold, and those big-time large gold coins. Sally broke down the whole story for him, and just as Suzumiya thanked her, something suddenly crashed down right beside him. Our hero noticed the cart was totally packed and wondered why they even needed it since magic inventories exist, so he straight up asked the merchant what the deal was. He explains that only mages can use this skill, and while the frozen time inside is perfect for merchants, hiring a high-rank adventurer like that costs a literal fortune. Suzumiya remembered his analysis skill could actually hide his info, so he decided to mask his rare powers to make sure he didn't stand out. The car finally pulls up to a massive gate, and a huge sign right above it says they've made it to the city of An. A guard decked out in armor and a long spear met them, but he just yawned and asked to see his ID. Cade froze up, so Sally stepped in to explain he didn't have an ID, leaving the guard totally shocked and demanding a silver coin as a deposit before giving them a special item to touch. It was a huge metal plate, and Sally says it's actually a magic scanner that checks everyone who touches it to keep the bandits out of town. She told him he'd get his cash back as soon as he showed his guild card, and since Carrick-san already paid the sign-up fee, he was all set. Suzumiya thanks Sally, thinking to herself that she's actually a total sweetheart. The moment he touched the magic item, a screen popped up showing his name, age, race, gender, magic level, and even his clean criminal record. He took one look, asked if it was any good, and realized he could read the whole thing perfectly thanks to his cheat language skill from the other world. Plus, the hero realized he could talk to Sally without any issues since he translates everything back and forth, and even the guard said it was totally fine. Suddenly, something totally caught him off guard, making him jump up and apologize for being so rude once he realized the guy actually had a last name. Everyone was totally stunned, even Sally, and then the guard blurted out that this guy must be a high-ranking noble. Suzumiya realized everyone thought he was some big-shot noble just because he actually had a last name. He realized Karak, Sag, Saleh, and San only used one name, and it made him wonder if those were their full names because maybe only the fancy nobles get to have last names. He pulled up the system screen to check out all the skills and stats for Celia and Kadzan. Suzumiya realized he was right and they didn't have last names, so the girl told him to check his status. She didn't see anything weird, just a name, and when the guard checked again, he realized the last name was totally missing. The guard apologized for the mix-up and gave the guy a proper welcome, but the young man just started laughing. Suzumiya realized he'd actually used his analysis skill to keep his last. He knew he had to be super careful about every detail he shared. They finally made it to the city of Ain and arrived at the local branch of the Adventurers Guild. Suzy Mies was just standing at the front desk while the girl there was about to repeat the same thing to him all over again. It was Sally, and after thanking him again, she explains that once he registers, he'll get a guild card that works like an ID for taking on quests. Our hero knew he needed cash to survive in this world, so he was totally down to pay the registration fee, and then Sally told him to touch a box that scans your power just like the... As soon as Suzumiya touched the box, he realized it was loaded with secrets, and the girl just gave him a smile and thanked him. Out of nowhere, she looked totally shocked, but when the hero asked if she was all right, she just played it cool and said nothing was wrong. Sally nervously promised to break down how the guild works, telling them they better pay attention because this was a huge deal. She hands him a guild card and explains it lists his name, race, and gender, with his rank at the bottom. G is the lowest and S is the highest, and right now, Sally explains that everyone starts at rank D, and to level up, the guild checks your finished quests and makes you pass a huge test. She says the third line of the card lists his crimes, but the only word it can show is bandit, since that's the label for anyone who breaks the law. Sally explains that the fourth line tracks your finished quests. The fifth line lists every monster you've taken down, and once you clear a quest, it instantly pops up on your map. If the hero beats the bandit, he'll officially go down in history for taking out a monster. Sally also said that even if he kills the guy in a duel, he won't turn. She put her hand over her heart and decided she had to see if that guild card was a fake, even though they're literally impossible to forge. She warned him that if the hero tried to forge even one, he'd be executed, and that totally freaked Suzumiya out. Sally finished explaining the guild card and asked if anyone had questions, but the whole room was dead silent. Just like that, he's officially an adventurer, and after the girl reminds him to never forget his guild responsibilities, Kaya-de-san promises he's got it and thanks her for the help. Right after he bailed, another guild worker walked up to Sally and started giving her a really close look. She teased that almost nobody calls her Sally anymore and said it looks like she finally scored a great guy. but Sally just told her to quit talking and get back to work. No joke, Sally really thought she'd finally found her soulmate, and the guy felt like he was from a whole different world. Plus, she was a total natural at magic and martial arts, which was a combo she'd never even seen before. Her gut was screaming that Katie-san was her destiny, so she just zoned out and completely ignored the other girls. Once night hit the city, Suzumiya crashed at the inn the gate guard suggested, and was honestly surprised by how nice the room was for the price. He popped open his system screen and saw he didn't just have a green wolf in his inventory, but some mysterious herb too. He didn't even blink before jumping into the fight to help the guards, and while they totally won, he seriously almost died out there. Suzumiya realized he was being way too reckless and needed to watch his back from now on. Between the bandits and the crazy duels, he started wondering if he could even survive in a place like... The next morning, our hero steps outside for a big stretch and catches a whiff of some seriously good food, making him realize he's totally starving since he hasn't eaten a single bite since. Suzumiya tracked down that smell and stepped inside, where he was greeted by a bunch of super friendly workers. The room was filled with girls in these super cute outfits. They all looked at Suzumiya and told him he was their very first customer of the day. Suzumiya stood there in total shock. He was super hyped and asked for a menu, so the girls pointed to the table and told him everything they served was fire. Susumi gripped his menu and scanned the room, wondering if these people were actually real-life elves. But as soon as he realized how different this place was from his old world, all his stress just totally vanished. Looking at all the girls surrounding him, he knew right then that he was totally gonna love this world. After crushing that delicious meal, our hero heads straight to the guild to grab some new quests. Susumi realized he needed some serious gear to check out the edge of the city, but he knew his cash wouldn't last long. A bit later, he's in the middle of a courtyard, hands on his knees and totally defeated, admitting that he's completely lost. Suzumiya realized he'd stumbled into a total ghost town, and since the vibes were super sketchy, he knew he had to find someone to help him get out of there fast. He knocks on the next door and swings it open, apologizing for just barging in like that. He begged them to help him escape, but when a bearded guy by the door asked him what this place was, he jumped back in total shock. He looked down at the guy and felt like a giant, wondering if the man was actually a dwarf, then explained that nobody sent him there. He just needed to know which way to go. The guy tells him it's a gun shop and says if he's not looking for weapons, he needs to get out. Suzy thought this guy was a total jerk, but he was actually just obsessed with weapons. The hero said he was just thinking about picking up a new weapon, so the guy asked how much cash he was actually looking to spend. Susu says he's got 13,000 taels and plans to stack way more, but the guy tells him that's not even enough for a basic knife, though The kid was totally blown away, wondering if this guy could really figure everything out just by watching his movements. He told them he woke up in the woods with zero cash and no idea who he even was. The guy just cut him off, saying he didn't care about the kids. The merchant thinks a sword and shield would be perfect for Suzumi, so he offers him a deal for 15,000, but only if he keeps this secret shop on. The guy straight up told him the only reason he didn't kick him out was because he looked like he had what it takes to be a pro swordsman one day. Suzumiya felt like the guy actually cared, even if he was acting like a total jerk. Maybe that's just how dwarves roll. He promised to come back as soon as he saved up enough. He finally made it back to the guild and ran right into some girls hauling massive stacks of books. Our hero asks Sally for some quests, and after she promises to hook him up, she tells him to follow her lead. She says starting the quest is super easy. Just grab the paper off the board and bring it right back to her. She warned them to only take jobs that match their rank, and since Zumi was an E rank, they were stuck with manual labor or picking plants, so Roy decided they'd go gather herbs. Sally tells him he needs to find a special herb called Zunana that stops people from bleeding, and since it only costs 30 telephone each, Suzumiya thinks it's a total steal. Sally explains that Zunana grass is actually super common, but it's a total nightmare to collect because it's always surrounded by deadly poison plants. Sally says it's dirt cheap since most people just stumble onto the herbs, but Suzumi is totally lost on how you even find stuff by accident. He suddenly remembered that weird plant in his inventory and showed it to Sally, who confirmed it was definitely the Zunana herb. Our hero realized she actually grew up in the forest he was warped to, and as long as he stays out of the deep woods, the monsters won't even be a threat. He thanked her for the tip and told her he knew exactly where to find her. After a while, he was totally worn out and shouted that he couldn't find the herb anywhere. He was totally panicking because he didn't realize all this grass was poisonous, and even though he was hoping for a strong effect, it just gave him a really bad stomachache. To make matters worse, Suzumiya couldn't even use his analysis skill, leaving him totally stuck on how to find the Zunanagrass in this huge mess of plants. He shut his eyes and claimed he had a built-in radar that would lead him straight to the plant. No matter how hard he struggled, he couldn't do a thing. But just as he realized he was in trouble, he heard a sudden click right next to him. He looked up and saw this weird triangle floating in the sky, but Suzumiya claimed he had no idea what that sign even meant. He walked up and spotted Zunana grass growing right underneath, realizing that if the grass was this close, he could definitely find it. He looked around and spotted a ton of triangles pointing right at the grass. He dumped a massive pile of grass right in front of Sally, leaving her and the rest of the workers totally shocked. The girl was shocked by how much he'd gathered and asked if he used poison grass, but Suzumiya just kept it real and told her it was all thanks to his insane skills. He did exactly what they asked, and since the stems were already over 15 centimeters long, that grass has to be growing at an insane speed. Sally told them to hold on for a second and immediately started digging through the grass. The girl was totally shocked that it was all just grass and junk, asking how he even managed to grab 203 pieces and what his skills were really about. He realized he didn't have this skill during her test, so he started tripping over his words and claimed he just used his instincts to check the herb. Sally leaned in close with her light, calling him out because she definitely heard him mention that evaluation skill, while Suzumiya just told her to chill out. He totally had the skill, but it was hidden from his status screen, which is why he'd been hoarding so many of them. Sally apologized, her mind totally blown since she'd never heard of skills that don't show up on a status screen, while Suzumiya breathed a sigh of relief that she barely dodged that bullet. He thanked her and took off, leaving her waving back and thinking the whole situation was totally mysterious. Suzumiya headed straight back to the yard, knocked on the door, and walked in to tell them he was there to buy a shield. He yelled at the top of his lungs to get noticed, but the guy just told him to shut up, get inside, and stay put. The hero looked around and spotted a sign revealing the guy's name was Dover Egg. He was totally locked in on forging, grabbing the metal with tongs and dunking it straight into the cold water. As the man dipped the hot steel into the water, it started steaming like crazy. Our hero was totally caught off guard. The guy sat up and yelled that he was finally finished with the job. He asks the kid if he's got any cash, and the guy says he has enough for a shield, which is perfect since his magic makes it super useful. The dwarf was totally shocked he could use magic, telling him that with talent like that, he could be an epic swordsman or just trade his weapons for a wizard's staff. He bragged about having some serious magic talent, but the hero just asked if he was actually going to use the staff. The guy was totally stunned and said he'd never seen talent like this, because even though the kid can use magic without a staff, he still has a hard time staying focused. The dwarf says magic is super powerful even without a staff, but it's useless if you can't hit anything, while the hero thinks the staff is the secret to casting spells way faster. He realized his magic was fast enough to hit the target without a staff, but if she got even faster using it, he'd just end up becoming way stronger. Suzumiya figures he'll just buy a staff later, but some guy interrupts him and warns him to stay alert, saying he's seen way too many talented people die just because they got slaughtered. He realized this guy was actually super nice, and Dover even let him try holding the shield for himself. The first one was way too heavy, so the guy suggested a different one, and Zumi agreed it was way better while thinking Doverall was just watching and catching every single detail. They finally found the perfect shield, and Suzumiya was hyped about how awesome it looked on him. It felt like a natural part of his body, proving that the dwarf really was a master at his craft. But they still had one major thing to talk about. Our hero went over to the dwarf to ask about the sword. The dwarf just wanted to know if he had any special requests for it. Our hero just wanted to know if the guy actually forged the sword himself. He was super into how things get built. This totally caught the dwarf off guard. He said to heat the sword right after the strike and cool it down fast, which was exactly what Suzumiya had in mind. The sword looked totally warped, and the dwarf could tell it was super weak, so he gave the blade a quick tap with his finger. He was totally blown away by how tough the blade was, and the guy kept saying it was absolutely insane. The dwarf figured out he could fix the warps by softening the metal, but he was still worried the blade was so hard it might just snap. The hero figured that heating the sword and cooling it slowly might soften the metal, but he honestly had no idea how hot it needed to get. The dwarf said he totally got it, and even though he had no clue where the guy learned those tricks, he thought it sounded awesome. He closed the shop right then and there to start testing, telling the guy to come back in 2 days and promising that if the sword turns out great, he can have it for free. He walked out thinking the service was total trash, but it looks like everything worked out and the guy is actually hyped now. The next morning, Suzumiya hit the streets to follow up on yesterday's convo, checking out the local adventurers for info without even needing to use his assessment skill. He figured everyone here was level 30 at most, and it was actually wild how mages had almost the same stats as regular adventurers. None of the beginners here had any real talent for magic or fighting. The mages were stuck with just one single element, and there weren't even any cool specialty shops around. Even the clothes in this world are super unique because you can just wash them with plain water, which is honestly a total game changer. Suzumiya figured doing his own laundry would have been way easier, and he was seriously dying for a bath, which just made him miss his old world so much. Suzumiya was so busy gathering Zunana grass that she didn't even notice the sun had set, and it was already pitch black outside. He hung his head, thinking he was way too obsessed with this herb and should just head home, when suddenly, something crazy caught his eye. Out of nowhere, a green wolf lunges at him with a growl, and he barely manages to dodge the attack. He gripped his fists and looked around, realizing that green wolf had already bolted deep into the forest, and he totally blew his chance to shoot it when it first landed. Suzumiya decides to whip out a fireball and blast the wolf right in the face, but his jaw drops when he sees two more wolves charging in from the distance. They were growling and acting super aggressive, so he gripped his shield tight and kept a sharp eye on them from the side. He looked around and realized he was totally trapped by at least 4 growling dogs lunging at him from every single side. Suzumi blasts a fireball, hears that sweet level-up sound, and realizes he's only got 2 dogs left to finish off. But things got super weird when he realized only one single wolf was actually charging at him. He didn't even have a second to look for the other wolf before it lunged out and slammed right into him. The guy barely managed to get his shield up in time. That wolf started shredding him with its claws, leaving nasty scratches everywhere. Then, a second wolf lunged in to join the attack at the exact same time. The hero just laughed, thinking he could make magic real just by picturing it in his head. He suddenly remembered his stone spears and let them rip, sending them flying in every direction to pin down every single wolf at once. The wolves got sent flying and desperately dug their claws into the dirt to stop themselves from sliding. Suzumiya stood up and let out a huge breath, realizing he almost got wrecked because he wasn't paying enough attention. Before long, the kid managed to shock everyone around him all over again. And it wasn't just the guild members who were left staring in disbelief this time. He dropped another giant stack of... She counted them up and found a massive 697 stalks of Zunanagras, leaving the girl totally stunned as she realized she just had to stop expecting anything normal when it comes to Suzumiya. She asked if he'd really been grinding all day just to walk away with a measly 20,910 telephone. He looked down totally embarrassed and admitted it was true, explaining that he was so busy picking grass that he wandered way too deep into the forest and somehow survived a fight with a whole pack of green wolves. Sally was totally terrified and asked if he was okay, but he just shrugged it off like no big deal, even though he'd literally just taken out 5 wolves with his magic. Sally was totally blown away and asked if he really used magic, since it's usually useless against big groups, so she had to know how he pulled it off. Suzumiya was totally shocked, but he explained that he just dodged the hits and used his magic shield to bounce them right back. Sally says it's way harder than it looks because you have to stay perfectly still and focus for 3 seconds to cast magic, so he should have been locking in while using that shield. Suzumiya realized this sounded way too familiar, since Doverag-san had already said something just like it before. She said the only thing that really mattered was that he was okay, even offering to grab a mage for some healing spells. But Suzumiya was actually doing just fine. He realized healing was a total game changer and decided he needed to master way more magic. He realized his mana was recharging crazy fast, like over 2 points every single minute. There was no way he was going to waste that energy on weak basic spells. He needed to start dropping. He balled up his fists with total confidence, officially deciding that from now on, he was going to master magic. He put his hand over his heart and swore that from now on, he'd use his skills to become the ultimate sword mage. Suzumiya headed into the woods to test his powers, focusing on search magic since he had absolutely no clue where he was going. He made it look like he was blasting his magic outward, standing right in the middle of the ring. He pictured his magic reaching out to the tree, and the moment it touched, Suzumiya shouted that he could actually feel the rough bark. He was totally hyped and claimed he finally understood everything, so Suzumiya decided to push her mental range even further. He saw everything from snakes and animals to trees and birds, but the massive flood of info was way too much for him to handle. He slumped to the ground, realizing he'd never survive a real fight with this power while his head felt like it was about to pop from all that crazy information. He plopped down on the dirt, thinking that maybe things went sideways because he didn't even know what he was looking for. Our hero wasn't giving up and decided to go for round 2. He pressed his hand to his head, trying to push his magic energy everywhere. He even used his analysis skill to filter the... As soon as he pulled it off, he noticed his magic had totally changed, and a circular map popped up right in front of him that tracked exactly what he was looking for, though it only worked for a short distance. He layered the maps to see where everything overlapped, and since it worked perfectly, he shouted that his basic radar was finally ready. This skill was called perception magic, and while he needed MP to boost the range and cash to keep it running, he was just hyped that no one could ever sneak up on him again. Suzumi remembered Doverac-san's promise from 3 days ago to return the sword once it was ready, so she figured it was finally time to go see him and learn all about. He showed up at the forge to check on his blade, and the dwarf told him it was finally ready for action. The guy explains that tempering is a total game changer for making metal super tough, and the kid realizes that what he calls coal iron is actually just steel. So the blacksmith was probably just using basic wrought iron, and that stuff doesn't get any stronger when you try to harden it like steel does. Since the blacksmith promised a free blade, he told the kid to just take the one he finished yesterday, bragging that it was his best work yet, and would hold him over until they found some special materials. The blacksmith handed the sword to the kid and told him to give it a test swing, looking totally stoked with how it turned out. He grabs the sword and actually goes for a swing, even though he was sure he didn't know the first thing about using one. He grips the handle with everything he's got and lunges forward with a swing that looks totally insane. He was shocked by how smooth his body moved, and the blacksmith just rubbed his beard with a satisfied look. The guy realizes Susumiya's swings are way too good for a beginner, proving he was definitely a pro swordsman before he lost his memory since he already knows how to fight and get even stronger. The guy just laughed to himself, thinking his martial arts talent was totally insane. He told the smith the sword felt awesome, but he was scared he couldn't control it, while the bearded guy just shrugged and said it was worth it if he could learn to make even crazier weapons. He said the kid taught him a secret move and asked if he was seriously giving away that special tech for free. He said he didn't care if everyone used the techniques since that's what they were made for, and besides, it wasn't like it would make things any worse for him. The dwarf loved that answer and promised to have his back whenever he needed help in the future. He realized the guy definitely wasn't a mage, but then he wondered why he wasn't wearing any armor. Susumiya was so hyped about his new shield that he totally forgot he wasn't even wearing any armor. He asked for light armor so he could move freely, and the blacksmith told him leather was his best bet. He said he only handles metal armor, but he knew a pro leather worker and sent the kid straight to them. Walking away from the forge, Suzumiya wondered if this dwarf was really going to be like Doverac-san or not. He walks into the room and meets a girl in an apron who asks if he's a brand new adventurer, but Suzumiya thinks she looks just like a regular shop clerk. He told them he was a legit adventurer, and that Doverac-san sent him to grab the armor. The girl spotted the sword Suzumet and instantly knew who made it, so she asked for a closer look and the guy just handed it right over. He was sure she'd spotted every tiny detail as she gave that weapon a real close look. She tosses a cloth into the air and slices it right in half with her sword before it can even hit the ground. The girl saw how crazy sharp that blade was, making Zimmy wonder if she was totally out of her mind for using something so dangerous. He looked around and realized they were totally alone, making him wonder if this guy was really the legendary Master Doverard. The girl confirmed the dwarf forged the blade himself, admitting she'd never seen steel. Suzumi noticed the girl used the word boku for herself, and she explained that a killer sword needs killer armor, asking him exactly what material he wanted to use. He asks what he can use to make his armor, so she points to a wall full of samples and tells him one of them is garden leather. She says this skin costs a crazy 15,000 bodies, but it's one of her favorites because it's way lighter than iron, super tough, and has 0 weaknesses. She mentioned a cheaper green wolf skin option, but it has pretty weak defense and catches fire way too easily. The master warned that even a basic fire spell would totally wreck anyone in that armor, so she said to definitely skip the wolf skin. The girl said she was totally out of options since she'd already used the customer's materials for armor, so she had to go with curtain skin, and Suzumiya totally agreed. The craftswoman explained she only sells gear to low-level beginners and can't afford to stock the pricey stuff, but she seemed weirdly proud of that, which totally confused our hero. He spots a suit of black armor standing in the corner with a gray cape over one shoulder, and the girl looks totally nervous as she taps her cheek. She says this armor drains your mana to trigger shields automatically, but since most people can't last 30 minutes, it's basically just been sitting there as a shop decoration. The armor just sat there as a shop display, but Susumiya knew it was perfect for him since it actually ran on the user's magic points. He checked it with his appraisal skill and saw it was a prototype magic suit that absorbs 20 mana every hour, which was exactly what he needed to keep his regeneration going. The guy asked how much the armor could actually handle and what it would cost, so she told him it's as tough as a garden skin and goes for the same price. She crossed her arms and looked super nervous as she asked Suzumiya if he was actually buying that armor, telling him it was a really bad idea. Our hero said he was just giving the armor a test run, and if it turned out to be trash, he'd just go buy some leather gear instead. The girl just grinned and, after thinking for a second, said that everything should be totally fine then. She quickly got his measurements and promised the armor would be ready by tomorrow night, telling Suzumiya to come back right when the evening bell rings. Before heading out, he asked if they sold anything besides armor, because he was actually looking to pick up a staff today. She tells him to hit up the magic shop next door if he wants a staff, but right then, a weird buzzing sound rings out. Black pixels suddenly glitch into the air, and a real door starts growing right up from the ground. It swings open and a girl in a huge black hat and a magic staff pops out, asking if she's the one they summoned. The craftswoman was totally fuming and told everyone to stay out of her shop, but the new guest actually talked back and asked what the big deal was, which completely caught Suzumiya off guard. He realized he was looking at a real-deal magician, and since the girl looked the part too, she just smiled and told him her name was Aura. She asked Suzumiya if he was there for the staff, and the craftswoman confirmed it, mentioning Dovarag's son sent him, which totally shocked our hero because he had no clue that dwarf was such a big deal. Arag grabbed his hand and told him he had to come to her shop right now, dragging him along while bragging about all the cool stuff she sells. As they stepped through the door, Susumi's jaw dropped at the sight of massive spiral stairs and glowing magic lanterns hanging everywhere. Aura led him over to a wall covered in all kinds of staffs, and asked Zamiya which one he wanted to pick out. He was totally overwhelmed by all the choices and asked what made them different, so Ra told him that a longer staff usually means your magic fires off way faster. She grabbed one and explained that longer staves are way harder to control, so it's best to just pick a comfortable size within the standard 60 to 120 centimeters. The sorceress grabs a staff off the wall and says it's a slower model, but this 60-centimeter weapon still makes you 10 times faster and is perfect for fighting in tight spaces. Suzumi says he gets it, but then he asks for a staff that triples his speed, making Aura and the tanner give him a really weird look. Aura said she didn't have a staff like that because it's totally useless for fighting and only 20 centimeters long. Suzumi told them his magic is already lightning fast, so triple speed is more than enough, plus a smaller staff won't get in the way of his sword and shield. Everyone just started laughing their heads off when the guy said he was actually going to use a sword and shield. She thinks he's cool enough to have that staff ready by tomorrow, but she's not taking the blame if the thing ends up being totally useless. Susumiya realized he sounded weird, and remembered Sally saying magic takes total focus, which explains why magic swordsmen are super rare in this world. Honestly, our hero didn't care about anything else as long as Aura finally made him that dream staff. Suzumiya pointed at one of the staffs and asked about chopping off 20 centimeters, making the other guy totally lose it. Laughing, she explained that every part of the staff had a special job so they couldn't be shortened, and even though he was totally lost, he figured it was normal to have no clue what she was talking about. Aura was totally freaking out, but Susumiya was just hyped because his gear would be ready by tomorrow, and he seriously couldn't wait to get his hands on it. Sally walks right up to the hero to talk about finally moving up in rank. He asked again, so she explained she needed the scoop on the Zunane grass and the green wolf attack, then told Kait his hard work earned him a promotion. But get this, adventurers actually need a ton of experience and have to finish at least one basic quest just to get their very first rank up. Sally told Kaysen that if he wanted to rank up, he should try being a loader, cleaner, or even a nanny, so Susumiya just nodded and headed straight for the quest boards. He was stuck doing lame jobs like picking up trash and hauling boxes, but then something totally weird caught his eye. He picked out a mission and told Sally, but she thought he chose something super weird. They were hauling a ton of iron ore, and while she said it was just a normal mission, everyone totally hated it. It was basically as bad as picking Zunana grass. Sally told him there were way better jobs than this since it was so heavy and far, but she still asked if he was actually down to take it. Susumiya thought the quest was a total waste of time, but he told them it'd be fine since he had his inventory to handle it. He asked Sally how to get more inventory space, and she told him it's actually based on your max magic points from the very first time you opened it. Susumiya realizes his inventory space is actually tied to his starting magic, giving him exactly 1,012 slots that each have their own weight limit. He wondered exactly how much loot he could actually cram into his inventory, realized this quest was a total jackpot for him, and didn't waste any time jumping straight into the mission. Susumiya was already gasping for air as he sprinted, and he almost ran over a long-eared animal that barely jumped out of the way in a total panic. He thought he could totally smoke Olympic marathon runners while zooming along at 20 kilometers per hour. Suzumiya realized that after leveling up, he could literally run for a whole day straight, even if he didn't actually feel like doing it. He runs into a guy carrying some gear and tells him he's there for a guild quest, so the man asks to see his guild map. The guy checked it out and said it looked legit. Then he handed over the iron ore and told him to grab as much as he could carry. The guy with the ore thought the kid looked way too weak to survive, but then his face twisted into total shock and fear. He asked how much Susumiya could fit in his inventory, and he said his limit was a solid 1,500 kilograms. The guy was totally shocked by how massive the gear was, admitting that even he can't carry more than 200 kilograms. Zemia realized what a normal inventory looked like and told them his was way bigger, admitting he didn't even know how much more he could actually fit in there. The guy says they're super short on help, so he asks the hero to haul the ore next time to keep Suzumiya happy. One slot finally got filled with a massive 2012 kilograms, and the guy was totally shocked by how heavy that actually was. Suzumiya still managed to grab the ore, and the guy was absolutely stunned. The hero just laughed and said that was only one slot, and he still got over 1,000 more wide open. The guy asks if he's just a living treasure chest, but he's dead set on being a real man. Down at the smelter, someone shouted for the boss to come check out Suzumiya and the crazy ore he just hauled in. He dumped out every single piece of ore he had, and it added up to a massive 10 tons. The guy was totally shocked that the storage was already full and asked how many trips it took. But the hero just casually said he did it all in one go. Suzumiya wanted to load up even more, but the guy stopped him at the 5th slot and warned him that his inventory was officially maxed out. Once the guild finished their test, the guy ended up with a total F rank, but Sally was losing her mind when she saw the report saying he actually hauled 10 tons. The next day, Suzumiya hits up the merchants and his new armor fits like a dream. But Aura is seriously doubting that tiny staff can actually do anything. Zemia said this was more than enough, and now his gear was finally 100% ready for action. She giggled and handed over the staff that fit right in her palms, and when the hero called it cute, she totally lost it and started cracking up. Suzumiya was finally all geared up and ready for a real fight, so he headed straight into the heart of the forest. He slowed down as his radar started pinging, and when he looked around, he saw a whole pack of green wolves staring him down. It wasn't just 2 or 3 of them. A massive swarm showed up and literally covered every inch of the clearing. Suzumi realized there were at least 300, maybe even 500 of these things. There was no way he could take them all on by himself. But if they followed him, our hero knew he couldn't run anymore, so he finally stepped up and unleashed his powers. He grabs a dusty old potion from the shop that cranks his mana recharge up by 10 times for 3 whole hours. Regular mages couldn't do a thing with this item, but Suzumiya isn't your average magic user and can actually use its power. He flicked his hand and sent a swarm of stone spears flying at the wolves, catching them totally off guard. Suzumiya shouted that it actually worked, and his magic research had revealed 5 major secrets. He knew he could dump more MP into his spells to make them hit way harder, even if the blast size didn't really get any bigger. Our hero figured he just had to spam magic, so he let a massive fireball fly. The fire swallows the green wolves while Suzumiya keeps blasting them with stone spears. The wolves growled as they took hits, but they didn't slow down and kept charging straight for Suzumiya. The guy spawned a sword out of thin air and charged straight in, keeping his shield up for cover. He zipped right through the line of green wolves, slashing his sword and taking out a bunch of them. His clothes were totally trashed and covered in black stains, but the hero just said that's exactly what he expected from those green wolves. He sat on a rock in the middle of all those beaten monsters and said that everyone was coming right for him. Susumi felt the scratch on his cheek and realized it had only been 3 minutes. The hero says those 3 minutes weren't a waste at all because a ton of his skills just leveled up. The guy realized there were way more wolves than he thought. 513 of them, to be exact. And he was totally shocked they'd even gather in a pack that massive. He said none of that mattered because he just had to get back to Sally-san. But first, he needed to round up the wolves. Heavy thuds and a massive roar echo through the trees as an armored beast stomps through the forest, swinging its thick tails around. Sally was totally stunned and asked if he seriously took down 513 green wolves all by himself. She asks where he found all those wolves. Suzumiya tells her he just spent 15 minutes wandering the forest, and then he asks if finding a pack that big is even normal. Sally points out that green wolves almost never hang out in packs this huge. She explains that 100 per pack is standard, but 500 is totally unheard of now, making our hero wonder if he's actually super lucky or just cursed since he walked away with so much. Sally was just glad he was safe and asked to buy his loot, so he agreed to sell her 100 items right then and there. The next day he headed back to the blacksmith to get his sword and shield checked out, and the guy was totally down to help. The man took one look at the sword and could tell the kid had been out there hunting green wolves for over 2 days straight. He pointed out that the scratches on the shield were definitely from green wolves, and judging by the state of his sword, he'd clearly taken down hundreds of monsters. The blacksmith straight up didn't think the kid could pull it off at first, and Suzumiya was finally starting to see just how awesome these weapon makers really are. He claimed he swung the sword perfectly and boosted his stats, but the blacksmith told him he still wasn't strong enough to actually handle it any better. The blacksmith handed over the fixed sword and warned the hero he only did the job because the shield was still in good shape, so he better keep it safe. Many kept insisting he swap his sword for a different one, and Suzuki was totally caught off guard. The blacksmith explains that even though the sword is tough, it's not iron and can't beat special metals, so a pro like him definitely needs to carry a spare. Susumiya said he got it, thinking those rare monster parts were probably from something crazy like a dragon. He asked what a dragon sword would cost, and the blacksmith told him it would be at least 4 billion telephones. Suzumiya was totally shocked when the blacksmith told him that only 5 parts of a dragon are actually good enough to make a sword. He says dragons are so rare they're basically myths, so you can't even put a price on them, because if one actually showed up, it would wreck entire nations and throw the whole world into total chaos. Susumi knew dragon parts were super rare, so he asked for a better option, and the blacksmith told him that if he wanted something crazy sharp, iron lizard metal was the way to go. Susumiya asks what that thing is, and the blacksmith tells her it's a B-rank monster, a massive lizard covered in solid metal. He says the metal on their skin is the perfect material for a sword, but they're so insanely strong that regular fighters don't stand a chance. He told the guy that a sword made from that stuff would cost at least 5 million, especially since metal lizards are actually way tougher than dragons. Suzumiya knew those lizards were crazy strong, but he wasn't sweating it because he'd never find them, and even if he wanted to hunt them, that was a problem for the future. Suzumiya heads back to the guild the next day only to find the gates locked tight, with a sign telling every fighter to get over to the forest gate instead. A massive crowd was hanging out by the gate, so Suzumiya spotted Sally-san and immediately asked her what the heck was going on. She says that after word got out about those green wolves yesterday, some adventurers went to investigate and found a huge pack of monsters heading straight for the city. She thanked Suzumiya for the extra time as the hero finally realized they were recruiting a whole squad of adventurers to take down the monsters. Sally made it sound like a massive horde was coming, so he was just glad they spotted her in time and asked if they were only playing defense. Sally says they can't just hide behind the gate since those Gaurgons can punch through any defense, meaning Susumiya has to get out there on the front lines if she wants that reward. Zemiya asked if they were really sending a rookie to the front lines, but Sally fired back that he's already one of the strongest guys in the city, even if he just started his journey. Since they only fought weak monsters, the whole guild was pretty pathetic and had to beg Suzumi for help. The hero realized there was no other choice and said he was all in, so Sally thanked him and told him he'd be the most important part of their whole plan. A bunch of guys show up and tell her they're good to go, so she gives them the nod and sends them with Kade-san straight to the front lines. Before she could even finish her sentence, Suzumiya bolted and vanished into the forest. He wondered how he was supposed to hit the front lines without getting wrecked, but it was totally impossible, and felt like they were asking way too much from him. Our hero loved this city way too much to let it go, and he knew this was the perfect chance to level up and crush the invasion. His radar starts blowing up with white dots, and right then, he spots a whole pack of green wolves. He figured he'd just take out every monster that was close enough to hit. Now he was ready to use his magic and totally crush those green wolves. The testables were growling and acting super aggressive, but since the hero's magic points just shot up, he was totally sure he'd win. He snapped his head away from the green wolves when he heard a loud crash, and as he spun around, he saw a massive monster that looked just like a boar. The hero summons a stone spear and a bunch of weapons stab into the monster, forcing it to dig its hooves into the dirt just to slow down. Susumiya was shocked that the monster just kept coming, but as soon as he realized Sally-san had mentioned this beast before, he fired up his appraisal skill. It took 7 stone spears just to knock 30% off the Gorgon's health, which is crazy since those same spears could have easily taken out 10 wolves. Suddenly, the Gorgon lets out a massive roar and drops dead as its HP hits 0, leaving our hero totally stunned and wondering if he landed a lucky fatal blow since 70% of its health just vanished in a heartbeat. He didn't even care about that. He was way more focused on how those monsters were moving. Unlike those green wolves from before, these monsters are all charging straight ahead like they're terrified of something, and he's got to find out what's scaring them so bad. Susumiya leaped way up over the trees and hung there for a second, seeing that every single animal was actually booking it in the same direction. He hit the ground and saw a massive shadow emerge from the trees, slamming a giant paw down and completely burying the wolf under its sharp claws. Suzumiya sized up the beast and realized this iron lizard was actually a total powerhouse. He finally tracked down that iron lizard he mentioned, and while it didn't have as much health as those Gorgons, it was decked out in solid iron armor. Zemiya knew he couldn't handle this fight solo, so he decided to head back and report what he'd found. The lizard spotted him and growled, and Susumiya knew he was totally busted as he tried to figure out if he could actually outrun the thing. Suzumiya turned and bolted, but seeing that lizard right on his heels made him realize it was time to get out of there. They call this lizard the swordsman killer because its armor is so insane that even a stone spear won't do any damage at all. Suzuki gripped his staff and realized he could pump out 10 magic points every second, meaning if he charged it for a full minute, he'd unleash a massive fireball. The fireball slams right into the lizard, but Suzumiya's jaw drops when the beast shrugs it off and keeps charging, forcing our hero to barely escape with his life. The lizard whipped its scaly tail around, and even though Susami tried to jump back, it still caught him right in the leg. Our hero grabbed his leg and realized that lizard's touch actually snapped his bone, but he was lucky he already knew healing magic because if he passes out now, it's game over. He thought of the blacksmith, Aru, Sally, and the elves, and knew he couldn't let this monster get anywhere near the city. He was ready to finish the monster for good, but since he didn't have any piercing attacks, he had to invent a brand new move using his lightning magic. But the shield didn't activate when he reached out, making him wonder if there was some secret rule to making his wild imagination actually work. That lizard's tail whipped right past him again and things were looking super sketchy. But then he remembered a total game changer. Unlike a sword, he could actually charge up his magic to make it way more powerful. He heard this thing was built to punch through anything, so it didn't need a big explosion as long as it was super fast and used insane pressure. He knew the only way to smash through that hard armor was to use the secret magic he'd been training for, a move called pressure. Suzumi decided to take a massive gamble by using his sword and staff at the same time, dumping every single point he had left into this one spell. But he'd have to survive for 15 temps. He figured that as long as he knew the lizard's patterns, dodging those lightning-fast strikes would be a total breeze. And for those tail attacks, he used his insane martial arts skills to predict exactly where the monster would swing, and just deflected every single hit. After 15 long minutes, the prep was finally finished, and Suzumiya was ready to strike the second they found a weak spot in that armor. He realized the lizard's back was the one spot that barely ever got hit, so he decided to aim right for it. He lets out a huge roar and dives down from the sky to strike. He shouts that he's putting every last bit of his power into this one move. Pure magic starts glowing and this pressure magic looked like a giant funnel squeezing down, forcing the lizard to arch its back from the insane weight. Suzumiya crashed to the ground in total shock, wondering if the guy actually pulled it off. His radar is pinging like crazy while the lizard stays down, making the hero think he actually took the monster out all on his own. Suzumiya headed back to the city and kept his guard up, but since the radar stayed totally quiet, it looked like all those monsters controlled by the Iron Lizard had finally bailed. He was just praying Sally and the crew were okay when the girl shouted his name, totally relieved that he actually made it out alive. He asks why they thought he was dead, and Sally tells him it's because he charged straight in and vanished without a trace, even after the monsters were totally gone. She asked where Suzumiya was because she was super worried, but he just apologized and figured she was getting all worked up over some adventurer. The hero asks if she didn't tell him to head to the front, but Sally fires back that she wanted him to back up the team, not just charge in like a maniac. It finally hit him that when he really thought about it, everything actually looked exactly like that. Sally asked what he did once the monsters bailed, and when Suzumiya said he just scouted the area after fighting that Iron Lizard, she was totally blown away. She freaked out saying they had to warn the magicians, but even with only 5 of them in the city, the hero told her to chill because he already took down the lizard. He figured the monsters ran off because he'd already handled her, leaving the girl so stunned she couldn't even say a word. She finally spoke up, saying she totally forgot he was a mage who uses a sword, so it makes sense now, and then she asked if Cade Sane uses wind magic. She explains that it usually takes a whole squad of C-rank mages just to stand a chance against this lizard. They normally use wind magic to toss it into the sky and finish it off while the hero just said he used magic to blast through her armor, but she totally didn't believe him, so Suzumiya told them to check out the lizard in his inventory instead. Sally was totally shocked by how massive the lizard was and asked about the hero's inventory, so he told her his was way bigger than everyone else's. But then she noticed a weird hole in the creature's back. Just as she started looking, Suzumiya scooped her right up to help her out. Upstairs, Sally was totally blown away because she'd never seen magic make something that massive, and she realized Suzumiya's powers are on a completely different level than normal magic. She thanked him for the lizard rescue and promised to tell the boss, and even though Susumi tried to head out, she actually invited him to tag along. Suzumiya is just sitting at the table when some guy suddenly slams his head down, screaming at the top of his lungs that he's guilty. Our hero was totally stunned, so he asked if this guy was the branch leader and admitted he was super confused. But the man just said they'd been watching the monsters act weird for a long time. He warned them a crazy strong monster was coming, but they did absolutely nothing, so this whole mess is totally on the leader. And if Suzumiya hadn't been there, everyone would have been dead. The kid realized this Iron Lizard was way too tough to beat, and since they were totally broke, he just said there was nothing they could do. The guild leader asked for a massive favor, telling the kid to keep the whole mess a secret so nobody would freak out. But Susumi was totally lost and asked what he meant. The guy says the guild is gonna announce it soon anyway, but the rumors are already making the whole city go crazy because nobody believes one single person actually took down that massive lizard. The guild leader told Susumiya he could keep the lizard's body and brag about the kill to everyone, but he just turned the offer down. He asked to take the lizard to Dovaragu-san to forge a weapon, and the guy was shocked he even knew the dwarf, but said it was fine since the dude is a total loner anyway. The guild didn't have the gear to handle that iron lizard and had to look in other cities, which totally caught Suzumiya off guard. The guild leader says there's a dwarven mining town to the southeast with the exact gear they need to get this done. Susumiya headed straight for the blacksmith town of Herrera, figuring the monsters there would be total pushovers. Our hero figured out that traveling at night and sleeping all day was the best move, so before leaving, he went to say goodbye to everyone who helped him out. Plus, it looks like Dofera already knew the guy was about to head out on his big adventure. Susumiya flashed a grin at Sally while dropping a pile of Zunana grass right in front of her, and she called out his name as he quickly answered back. The girl asked if something happened to the branch boss, but he told her it was no big deal, and the guy just decided to skip town. He was heading to Herrera to craft a sick new weapon, and when he asked if it was rare for adventurers to travel, she told him it happens all the time. She looked totally crushed thinking about Katie moving to a new city, but Suzumiya told her not to sweat it. That iron lizard was the reason all those wolves showed up, but since he already took it out, the city should be totally fine without him. Sally said she totally got it, and asked if he wanted to sell the grass to the Zunin, making Susumi realize just how lucky he was to land in this world and meet someone as sweet as her. Our hero really hoped she'd be the one giving him missions again someday, so he gave her a massive thank you for everything. He handed Sally Sana a branch of Zunana grass, and told her he really hoped they'd cross paths again. She flashed a huge smile as she took the twig, promising that they'd definitely meet up again. 5 days into the trip, Susumiya checks his radar and remembers the 10-day horse ride from Ayin to Herrera. But then he spots a mountain valley and thinks they've already arrived. He'll be there in about an hour, and get this, he's actually twice as fast as a horse because of all that insane training he's done. The radar starts beeping, and Susami realizes a bunch of people are sneaking through the woods instead of just using the road. Susumiya decided to go see for himself, and he found a kid tied up on the ground with a bunch of guys just hanging out nearby. He figured they were robbers, since that's just what people call anyone who's committed a sin in this world. The word is, if you spot these guys, you gotta call the guild or just take them out yourself. Turns out these creeps actually snatched a kid from Herrera. They had to move fast before. Our hero uses his appraisal skill to confirm they're definitely bandits, all 6 of them just like he thought. And Suzumiya realizes this is officially his first time fighting actual humans. One of the robbers stands up to bail, and just as the others ask where he's going, they all suddenly look up at the same time. Everyone started wondering what that noise was, so one guy ordered the other 2 to go check it out, and they had no choice but to listen. The guy in the fur cape spots a stone spear stuck in a tree, but Zumiya is already waiting on the branch above and dives down the second he sees an opening. He blasts pressure magic right in the middle of his jump, slamming his enemies down without even touching them. The rest of the bandits were totally clueless and started looking around in a panic. But as soon as they spotted Suzumiya, they demanded to know who this guy even was. He just laughed and decided to hunt them down, but his magic was way too powerful and he totally overdid it, though he didn't even feel bad since this world is basically a death. Saving the kid was the only thing that mattered, but when he checked her stats, he realized she was stuck in a forced hypnosis. Even with his magic, the guy didn't really understand this forced hypnosis stuff, but he was just hoping it could be cured. He walked into the city carrying her in his arms, and everyone turned around with their jaws on the floor. This guy with a double-braided beard screams that Suzumiya did something to his daughter Sumisa, then tells them to wait because he knows they don't trust him one bit. He tells them he just rescued her from forest bandits, but it looks like she's totally under a forced trance. The guys told Izumiya to let them handle it, since they could easily break that hypnosis with some simple herbs. The dad rushed over to his daughter, looking totally stressed, while the dark-haired guy apologized and explained that the father had been panicking since she vanished into the woods that morning. And honestly, dwarves just have a massive temper. The bearded guy apologized for freaking out, introduced himself as Sumi Zhu, and thanked her for saving his daughter, promising to help Suzumiya with anything she needed in the city. Our hero was super hyped and wanted to find a shop to process that iron lizard. But the dwarf told him to hold on and invited Suzumiya to come party with them instead. The dwarves set the table and cheered as they toasted to Sumisa finally being back. Our hero realized pretty fast that literally no one was paying attention to him. But honestly, it made sense since The girl stops him mid-meal to introduce herself as Sumisa, explaining that she's lost all her memories but is super thankful he saved her. Suzumiya asked if she was really ready to work after that wild adventure, but she told him she felt totally fine all thanks to him. She asked if he was a wanderer since he looked like a total pro, feeling super guilty that he had to pause his journey just for her. He told her it wasn't her fault since he only came to town to learn how to work with iron lizards anyway. So Sumisa offered him her own workshop to get the job done. Suzumiya was super hyped and said he'd love to help, but then Sumizu showed up and told the hero he could count on him for a sword, even if it cost a massive 1 million to craft. The guy was so thankful his daughter was safe that he offered a massive 50% discount. And even though Suzumiya really wanted to pay the full price, he knew he asked to sell them some loot since he had a whole iron lizard body on him. But Samosa thought he was totally lying and told him to stop joking around, so our hero realized it. The dwarves were totally losing it when they saw he actually brought back the body of an iron lizard. Sumisa told him they'd need a massive storage space for something that big, and sent him off to report it to the accounting department. The accountant says the quality is perfect, and they'll set the final price once the metal is out, offering a cool 3 million bodies per kilogram. The guy said he could have bought everything right then and there, but this deal was way better than the guilds, and Suzumiya was so blown away by the massive payout that she immediately said yes. Right after he bragged that the win was in the bag and got ready to fight, he noticed the hero could actually use fire magic. The dwarf says it's finally time to carve up that iron lizard, and Suzumiya is totally caught off guard when he's forced to help out. He just used his fire magic to burn everything away until only the metal was left on the outside. The dwarf says the hero is scoring half a ton of metal just from the size of it, and Zamiya is already doing the math to see how much cash he's about to make. The dwarf says this magic fires as fast as a B-rank spell, making the hero's sword seem totally pointless, but Suzumiya explains that a solo fighter always needs to be ready for a close-up brawl. Sumizu had never even heard of a style like that, and he thought a 20-centimeter staff was way too short to be a real weapon. Suzumiya says he just picked up his staff at a shop, but the dwarf calls it a basic iron and copper tool for total noobs, and tells him he can find something way faster. The kid wondered if the staff's material could actually speed up his magic, so he asked the dwarf to craft one out of an iron lizard. The blacksmith said he could do it, but it's gonna take a while because the metal is super tough and needs a totally different way to be forged. If the hero wants a staff, he's gotta find Sumisa since she's the best crafter in the whole city, and he's totally on board with that plan. He asked Signeza to craft a staff from an iron lizard, and she told him it would be a total luxury, but she'd do it if he was really sure. Suzumiya asked for a tiny 20-centimeter staff with the same speed as a full-sized one, but the girl straight up told him that was impossible. The hero asked her to teach him since she makes the absolute best staffs in all of Herrera. She was totally hyped and promised to teach him everything, but once she started geeking out over every tiny detail about the staffs, Suzumiya realized this was going to take way longer than a quick chat. Turns out the staff's core is the secret to magic, and since the booster has 2 layers, a super dense outer shell and a high-quality core are what make your spells fire off at insane speeds. Magic density is basically the max amount of power a staff can hold based on its material, and if you try to cram in too much, all that extra magic just starts leaking away. Basically, using super dense material for the shell and upgrading the accelerator layers makes the whole thing way more powerful. Zemiya got hyped to build a staff that's just as fast with magic as a normal one, but also works perfectly as a sword. She gave him a doubtful look and said she had no clue what he was talking about, so the hero turned to her and asked for a way better explanation. Suzumiya explained he needed a staff made of iron lizard metal with a blade on it to use as a sword, and he'd trade his points to get insane speed. She says if you build the staff this way, it'll hold enough magic for 100 spells, which is basically like having the power of 3 whole mages combined. Suzumiya realized his power level and healing speed were a massive 500 times higher than any regular mage. The hero said he could totally handle it and asked if it wouldn't be awesome, leaving the girl completely stunned until she realized that's exactly why he's a real adventurer. She accepted the weird job and promised the hero a title for a mage who runs out of mana before they can even finish their spell. Suzumiya said he'd just boost his magic points to stop that from happening, finally settling the whole weapon situation for good. Since the staff was going to take 3 days to finish, he decided to grind some city quests, using his new rank from the Iron Lizard fight to finally take on the high-level missions. He headed out on his mission and ran into a pack of wolves, but he's so used to taking them out with stone spears that it was basically second nature. These weren't green wolves, they were red ones that could dodge magic, so he really had to kick it into high gear. The town was totally cleared of trees, and Suzumiya figured that was the big reason monsters stayed away from Herrera. Suddenly, the radar starts going off, and when he looks up, he spots 2 people standing right at the cave entrance. These guys were definitely bandits, and Suzumiya knew he had to check if they were part of the gang that snatched Sumisu-chan. 2 guys were guarding the entrance with a bunch more inside, and even though he figured it was a bandit hideout, the whole place just felt super off. Susumiya hit up Guildmaster Herrera to report he found the bandit hideout, and the boss finally understood why they were moving at such a crazy speed. With guards posted at the entrance, you can tell this gang is massive, and the guild leader promised a huge reward once he confirms the hero's info is legit. They had to keep everything totally secret because of spies in the city, so they started hiring adventurers to build a massive strike force. Since Suzumiya was probably the one who found it, they told him to show up first thing the next morning. He hit up Sumisa to see if the staff was finally done, but it wasn't ready yet. Suzumiya realized he couldn't test his new weapon until the bandit raid, but since he wouldn't even need it there, he just decided to stick with his old gear for now. Suzumiya asks if all the trees around the city were actually chopped down on purpose. Turns out, melting metal takes a ton of charcoal, so they wiped out the forest to get it. She tells him the metal is total trash and won't work for forging, but then Susumi remembers that back in his city, they use limestone and coke to get it done. He told her they could just turn coal into coke, and since Sumisa was totally lost, he explained how the furnace creates way better fuel. She says making staffs is her thing, and even though she's a bit confused, she's down to give it a shot if the hero can prove the fuel works, so they can finally make some. Susumiya hits up Ignison's fuel store and comes face to face with a guy in a black apron. The hero starts breaking down what he means by this new fuel, but Igni isn't buying it, and Susumiya realizes the whole thing sounds super sketchy, so he decides he's gotta go. He said he'd sell the technique once they proved it worked, and he was even ready to pay for every single thing they needed for the test. Ignison barely risks a thing with this deal, and he's about to become the legend who brings coke to this entire kingdom, or maybe even the whole world. He admitted the move wasn't a guaranteed win, but the guy respected the honesty and totally took the deal. So they finally figured out how to get coke, but Susumiya was still living that adventurer life, and a whole night had already passed since the news about the bandits dropped. The strike force finally linked up with a crew of guild adventurers, and the hero told everyone he was super hyped to meet them. This guy named Mages stepped up saying he's a B-rank wind mage and the leader of the strike force. They slapped the map down and figured the base was 8 kilometers away, crawling with about 30 to 40 bandits. This was supposed to be a simple E-rank mission, but a ton of bandits showed up, and since Sizmi's crew of 7 were all B-ranks, they figured they could totally handle it. Maji forces everyone to state their name and rank, so Valin and a lower-ranked swordsman named Zen Shi start introducing themselves along with the rest of the crew. When Suzumiya stepped up to give his name and rank, everyone was super confused, so he had to explain that as a magic swordsman, he actually fights with both a sword and spells. The other adventurer shouts that these skills are way too OP for a low-level E rank, so Maji uses his assessment ability to reveal everyone's true power. He knew that if he kept hiding his strength, everyone would just end up getting hurt, so he decided to stop holding back and finally go all out. Majas wanted to throw down like a young guy in a real brawl, while Suzumiya straight up refused to take any more potions. The moment he showed what he could really do, the other adventurers were totally blown away, and he decided he was finally done playing around with his sword. He finally used his magic and rained down a ton of stone spears to show off his insane power. The whole field was totally fried, leaving the mages and the rest of the crew standing there with their jaws on the floor. Suzumiya realized he should have used dual magic instead of switching between his sword and spells, but Maji told him he'd already done enough. Our hero was worried it wouldn't be strong enough, but it was actually decent for its rank, so he asked about its magic resistance next. Susami says he can fix broken bones and blast enemies with magic for 20 minutes straight, which is actually a top-tier A-rank power. The guy says he's still E-rank, but that's just because he's only been an adventurer for a month. Maddie hyped him up as a total beast who'd be a massive help, so he told Suzumiya to lead the charge when they raid the base. Our hero was low-key terrified of the front lines, but he still stepped up and agreed to head straight into the fight. Someone yawned as they settled on a plan. The main heroes and Valin would lead the way while Megas covered the back, keeping the whole squad to just 3 people. The rest of the crew fans out to block every exit the bandits don't even know about. Then they jump into the fray with a stone spear. People started dropping left and right, and while some guy tried to act like everything was cool and told them to keep moving, our MC didn't even wait for him to finish before The guy is totally shocked by his speed, but he just brushes it off and asks how he's even sprinting through this cave so calmly. Luckily, our hero is using his radar too. Our hero has to keep on running to get away. Whenever he spots someone, he uses his assessment skill to check if they're a bandit. Suddenly, his focus gets totally cut off. The other heroes were totally gassed trying to keep pace with him, but he just mentioned it was lucky the cave didn't have any side paths so they could get there fast. And the other, he thought things were going to be way harder because the door blocking the cave had no handle, meaning it could only be opened from the inside. His radar shows nothing behind the shop, but he hears a huge crowd back there and has no idea what to do until someone suddenly calls out his name. They asked him to use magic to bust the door down, but Cade already knew the plan before the guy could even finish his sentence. One guy stood by the door and gave the signal to start, while another man waited right across from him. Our guy bursts into the room, and the bandits totally freak out, screaming at the top of their lungs to find out who he even is. He scanned them with his appraisal skill, saw they were all bandits, and took them out with a stone spear. The bandits were sent flying by the hero's insane shockwave, and Cade's friends just stood there with their jaws on the floor, totally blown away. Maji says it's finally over, but when someone asks about his voice, he admits it's a bit of a letdown, even though they crushed the bandits and the MC turned out to... They finally started grabbing all the treasure. Our hero was just relieved that everyone was safe and sound. Suddenly, he yells out that 7 more people and a kid are heading straight for them. He agreed to the plan, promising to hunt them down for answers while our hero's only job was to get that kid to safety. The sketchy guy says they finally made it and looks over at someone, just as our heroes get totally blindsided by an ambush. He demanded to know who was there, but the MC just crushed the bandits with pressure magic and saved the prisoner. He scooped her up and noticed she was super light, figuring she was totally knocked out by some kind of forced hypnosis. Kyrie figured his buddy was doing fine, so he decided to check out the girl's stats instead. Her name was Rhea. She wasn't just any elf, but belonged to a super. Nobody knows how old this girl is, but she's got 2 crazy skills. She can push her magic outside her body and control it however she wants. Get this, the hero's best skill. This power lets her snatch mana from any nearby enemies who are bad at controlling it. And even though the heroes don't fully get what bad control means, being able to hijack someone else's magic is absolutely insane. The girl suddenly twitched, and our hero couldn't believe those bandits actually managed to catch her. She snapped awake and immediately started asking who he was and what kind of crazy magic he used. She flashed a smile, repeated his name, and told him he was totally right about everything. Our hero was seriously wondering what was up with this girl. Suddenly, a guy walks over to ask if she's doing all right. Katie asks how the rest of the crew is holding. He was super relieved she was doing okay, but then he realized he totally blanked on the fact she was still tied up and rushed to free her, apologizing for leaving her stuck like that. Out of nowhere, she just unties the ropes herself and tells him she's got it covered, but thanks him anyway, leaving the guy totally stunned. He asked if she could really escape alone, but she told him that since she has 0 magic, she's basically helpless by herself. He thinks she's got magic since she broke free, but she tells him he's just got tons of mana and 0 control, making it super easy for her to use. He figured she was secretly tapping into his mana, but the weird part was that his power levels weren't even dropping. Just then, the guy interrupted to apologize, saying he was totally lost on. Maju told the girl she was safe and promised to have the guild find out where she was taken from. But when he asked her to come with him, she straight up said no. She told him his mana was way too hard to handle, so she flat out refused to go with him. She made it clear she wanted to stay with our hero, so the guy noticed how attached she'd become, and asked if Katie could look after her until they reached the guild, which he totally. Our MC reached out his hand and told the girl to come with him. She totally agreed and went along with it. He was actually surprised by how well she was listening. He still had no... She says their job is to take in these kidnapped kids and look after them, but there's a massive catch. They were totally stuck and had no clue what to do next. Our main guy had to watch over her until they figured out her past, but the little girl started screaming because she was not down for that. She was desperate to be by his side, so she asked if they'd ever met before, but he straight up told her they were total strangers. She hops right onto his bed and starts gushing about how soft it is. Our main guy is totally lost and has no clue how he even ended up in this spot. It looks like she has... The guild needed 5 whole days just to dig up any info on her. He figured 5 days wasn't too bad, and he could totally handle the weight. The guy told her it was time to hit. He figured it was time to check on his crew and see how the work was coming along. He had a massive to-do list he needed to tackle. Finally, our hero slowly blinked his eyes open. There was this little girl right in front of him, and he was like, "Why is she lying on me?" She asked if he was awake, and he said he just woke up. She says she woke up because she felt his little friend saying hello, and he just says good morning back while wondering if she's actually lost her mind. The guy says what's up and asks how the production is going, and while the man says the experiment is a total success, he stops mid-sentence to say the hero is way too young to be a dad. Kaid explains that bandits snatched the girl and she's totally lost her memory. so he's looking after her while the guild digs into her past. But the guy just thinks the whole situation is a mess and asks if he's taking a break from his guild duties. She starts claiming she can fight and that with him around, she'll end up way stronger than that green uncle. The guy asked who that was, and she just told him she was talking about Magis. He's a B-rank adventurer, but the last time he checked her stats, she didn't have a single combat skill. Our MC just laughed and confirmed the guy was taking a break, while the girl realized that if he was gone, it was finally her turn to jump into the fight. The guy showed the hero the stove, and his eyes totally lit up as he started checking it out from every angle. But something felt super sketchy, so he asked if there was a gas leak, only to find out the whole project was still just a big experiment. He basically fixed up an old, empty furnace to get things started. If this whole thing actually works, he's gonna have the blacksmith build him a real one. He even beefed up the build. Our hero already dropped some cash to get the experiment moving, and since he wasn't sure about the prices, he asked if they were still good on the budget, only to find out that she points out that mithril is literally everywhere, even inside the walls, but he tells her there's no way it should be used like that. He checked the data, and it really was mithril, with the guy explaining that a third of these stones are ore, but they aren't totally pure since half of it is just useless. They told him his skills were pretty mid, but he still knew how to craft exactly what he needed, and since he figured mithril wasn't worth much there, at least he still had some cash in his pocket. The boy and girl were standing right by the stove, and the heroes knew they had to deal with that gas leak fast. Rhea told him she was gonna handle it and wanted him to watch, but the guy immediately grabbed her and warned her to stay back since that stove was super dangerous. She wasn't feeling it at first, but she finally agreed with him and decided to just do it from right where she was, stretching her hands out. Out of nowhere, the pipes started fixing themselves. All the cracks just vanished right before their eyes. Our hero and the guy were totally shocked by what they were seeing. But the girl? She just... Rhea flashed 2 thumbs up with a massive smile and bragged that she was the one who pulled it off. Our hero was totally shocked she used magic since she isn't even supposed to have any, and when he asked how she did it, she said she just melted some mithril to seal up the cracks. She just grins and says it was a piece of cake, but he's totally floored because she has no clue she just did something impossible, and he finally realizes she has absolutely no common sense. He knew he looked weak, so he told her to watch the mithril closely before suddenly bending it like it was nothing, which totally blew her mind. He explained that while you can bend stuff with force, welding it that perfectly from a distance is basically impossible. The girl was totally hyped to hear that. The man was shocked, shouting that nobody should. He asked the girl for her take on things. The stove was working perfectly, and suddenly a new face popped up right in front of him. He said he was stoked to finally meet him after hearing all the rumors. Then he tipped his hat and introduced himself as Maius, the guy in charge of accounting. Our hero says he's stoked to meet him, and the guy feels the exact same way. He tells him there's a lot they need to go over. He cuts the small talk and... The guy was hyped. They actually had a plan ready, and since production hadn't even started yet, he explained that things moved so fast because the fuel they're making is straight up elite. Since this stuff gets insanely hot, they can purify mithril way better, and he figured out that while charcoal is 20 times faster, using their new material will actually speed things up by another. If they can pump out enough of this stuff, they'll be able to wipe out every mithril mine just by clearing away the rocks. He kept bragging that the oven would pay for itself in just 10 days, and demanded they start making tons of them right away. So the other guy felt super awkward and just went along with it. He straight up asked if the guy was there for his cut of the cash, even though he was actually totally clueless about the whole thing. He'd be totally stoked with just 10% of the cash. But Mios explains that this is the first time he's ever paid a tech fee, and that he even got a pro merchant. He said a 50-50 split is the standard deal and asked our hero what he thought about it. He asks about the cut one more time and thinks it's a massive amount, and even though the merchants shouldn't suspect a thing, he still can't shake his doubts. This tech is totally next level, and since he figured 50% just wouldn't cut it, he worried he'd caused another misunderstanding, even though he secretly wanted to take. The guy finally chilled out and said they should stick with that amount, even telling Kada he could pick up his cash in any city as a small favor. He said he got it, but he was totally hyped by how fast everything went, and couldn't wait to see what would happen the next time they met. The girl stood right next to him with a huge smile. She called out his name and asked where they were headed next. Our guy took a second to think it over. He was dying to check on his staff sword, but since it needed a full day to finish, he decided to wait so he wouldn't look like he was rushing her. With nothing left to do, he asked the girl to hang out and totally caught her attention. She says it's an adventure and she's totally down to hunt some monsters. The guy thinks she's way too wild for her own good. He tells her straight up that fighting monsters is He told her to hold back on the magic until she could actually defend herself, but she just shrugged it off, saying she's a mage, and she'll be totally safe as long as he's standing right next to her. He asks her one more time if she's really a mage, so she points to her hair clip, and he can tell right away that this thing is way more than just a basic decoration. It uses its own magic to cancel out any attack that tries to hurt the user. Bad guys won't even recognize this thing, and you just have to pour in some mana to make it work. He figured she'd be totally safe as long as she had that hairpin, but he was mostly confused about why it was even there, especially when she asked if she could help take down the monsters. Just a few minutes after leaving the guild, the girl was busy gathering plants when she suddenly shouted out about what she'd found. He picked up an F-rank quest to gather Fiero grass, which was easily the safest mission the guild had on the board. He's pulling the same move he used for the Zunana grass, using his analysis skill to hunt down everything he needs. But he's gotta find one first to know what to look. He used his appraisal skill to check if the grass was actually useful, only to find out it was a total fake called Brev Sky. So when the girl asked if he found the right stuff, he just told her no. He finally got his hands on the Fiero herb he needed. He was stoked it was her, and told her she did an awesome job. She was super happy, and bragged that she totally won. He'd already snagged 7 pieces when Rhea straight up accused him of cheating, but the guy immediately started denying it. He wasn't even sure if he was allowed to. Out of nowhere, the grass just snapped right in half. He realized she was just waiting for him to find it so she could snatch it away at the last second. It was the exact... She just figured out where the Fiero herb was, exactly like he predicted, but when he asked for the specific spot, she told him she had no clue. Rhea explained she was just tracking his magic's core, and the guy was totally blown away because he thought she was using his own detection skill. Suddenly, the girl notices something weird. Our hero asks her what's going on, and she just starts unleashing her magic. He spots a stone needle appearing out of nowhere and asks what's going on, especially since there aren't any monsters in sight. The girl raised her hand to tell him he was totally wrong about the monsters. Then she pointed her needle straight ahead. The weapon slammed right into the wolves. They were actually these crazy red wolves. The boy couldn't believe she spotted them from so far away. They were literally over 100 meters out. The guy asked how she tracked them down, and if it was some kind of secret ability. She says the monsters and the MC have such unique mana that they're easy to track. But with all these obstacles in the way, her search is getting way harder. He wondered if she had some kind of radar on her, and did she seriously just compare him to a monster? She didn't wait around though, turning back to the wolves and letting them have. He was blown away by the accuracy, admitting he couldn't even hit a target from that far. But the girl explained the suit has homing tech, and he should be able to do the exact same thing. He was totally shocked and asked if he could fire homing shots, but Rhea shut him down, saying he's way too slow to make it happen. The guy was totally stunned, but she told him that's the whole reason she's mastering Kayad's magic. She admitted his magic was way faster and more powerful than hers, so he just looked away and thanked her. Cade asks why she fired so fast, and she just says the MC is too much of a weirdo to do it himself. He figured a spoiled girl like her would just call him a freak. But if she really only has one type of magic, he's got a hunch he needs to go check something out. The guy held up a massive needle and asked her what she thought of his magic, totally sure it was OP, but Rhea just told him there was no way. She warns him that her magic is pure chaos, and she'd lose control if she used it, making him wonder if he's been way too reckless with his own powers. He figured if she was a high-ranking court sorceress with insane perks, then he had to be a magic swordsman with his own cheat codes and a total master at materializing stuff. He figured his magic was totally wild, while the girl's power was honestly just super weak. He started thinking about how insane it would be if he made some OP magic and she fired it with that same perfect aim. A pack of red wolves spotted them and started growling, so Rhea turned around to face them head-on. Rhea warned him that a massive swarm of monsters was closing in, but even though she tried to ask him about magic, he was totally locked in on something else. She noticed he was looking way too happy and asked what the big news was. He flashed a huge grin and said things were finally getting fun, and the girl was totally on the same page. She starts spinning around and firing needles everywhere, yelling that she's having a total blast too. He asked if she used mana to power her magic, but he was totally stumped because his own mana wasn't dropping at all. Rhea claimed she was only snatching up the mana he was throwing away, so he asked her why she thought that, and exactly how much she'd stolen. She told him it was every single particle, and while he was totally losing it, that eye smashed right into the wolf again. He asked how she's able to use his mana for her own spells, but she admitted that she can't actually control the source of that power. He told her that even though she acted like it was totally obvious, it made him realize he'd been using magic without actually knowing how any of it worked. He asked if he could pull off those same moves if he trained his magic control, but Ria told him straight up that he has absolutely zero talent for it. She said Ked seemed like he was from a world with zero magic, and he totally gulped when he heard that. He wondered if he was just a natural since he could cast spells without any practice. But she told him that having that kind of raw talent means he'll have zero control over his power. Our MC can't control his magic at all, but he still pulls it off just by being super bold and reckless. He nodded, thinking that if she could use raw magic to force that mithril into shape, he could totally do the same thing with his own power. He pulls his water and earth powers straight from nature. So if he just uses his magic to crank up the heat in the air, he can make everything spontaneously catch fire. Just mix a twisted imagination with the world around you, and that's how you trigger your magic. He couldn't use lightning magic because it wasn't a natural part of the area, so he decided he shouldn't rely on powers that aren't always ready to go. The girl says everything is ready and magically tosses a sandwich right to Katie, who thanks her and thinks the salty snack tastes awesome. Our hero is totally shocked by how salty the food is, so he asks where she got it since they didn't bring any supplies, but he completely freezes when she says she just grabbed it from the... He hauled all those dead wolves back and told them to confirm the quest was done and take the loot off his hands. The girl's jaw dropped when she realized he actually brought back 4,000 stalks of Fiara grass and over 300 red wolf bodies. She stuttered, asking where he even got all that loot, but the other girl just chimed in and said she was the one who helped him, making the guy realize these shocked reactions were basically going... She turned to him and apologized, saying they seriously needed to talk about Ria. She pointed to the couch, telling the heroes to take a seat, and when she asked what they wanted to talk about, he was totally stuck on how to even explain it. He thinks they finally found her hometown, but since they're getting along so well, it's honestly too hard to break the news. He figured he should break the ice, so he asked if her parents were coming to get her, but she told him no, and that it was way too awkward to explain. She told him her family was nowhere to be found, and he asked her one more time if she was actually serious. There aren't any cities near the bandits' home where this girl could have come from, but they swear they just found her alone in the middle of the woods. Her hometown is super far away, but there are still a few cities she might have come from. It might be possible, but they're betting against it since her guild can't find a single record of anyone who looks even remotely like Ria. He walked up to the girl, apologized, and told her she shouldn't hear this as he covered her ears with his hands. He asked if she got dumped because of her personality, but he was told it didn't even look like a breakup happened. She doesn't know the full story, but she's sure that's not the reason, and he's totally lost on what she even means. This girl is seriously mysterious, from her crazy skills to that elven hairpin, and even though he told the guild she's an elf, it's no surprise they found nothing since they have zero records on her kind. He turned to her and said he knew her memory was totally gone, but then he asked if she remembered anything at all. Maybe it was the spot she was in or the view, but something about it totally made her stop and think. She remembers that forest but couldn't find a single drop of magic, and it's so far away it might even be on another continent. She answered every single question with total confidence, but she didn't sound like a normal kid at all, which is just another mystery about her. He figured she was way older than she looked, maybe even older than him, so he asked what they were going to do with Ria. She explained they were hunting for someone to take her in, but finding a new guardian was proving to be a total nightmare. She warned that if they didn't find anyone, the girl would be stuck in the shelter, and Rio was absolutely losing it. She started screaming that she wanted to be the main character and snatched him up, leaving the guy looking totally stunned. The girl asked if he'd take her under his wing, even though it's a total struggle for a busy adventurer to look after a kid. Normally this would be easy, but Ria's totally lost her memory. Seeing him use those same special powers finally started to clear her head. If he pushes her away now, they'll be totally fine against weaklings, but what happens if he's forced to burn through every last drop of his mana? She's burning through his mana, so if she runs out she won't be able to cast any spells. Will she even be able to escape then? He felt bad for her, but he knew she'd just be a total burden in a fight, and you could see the doubt written all over his face. He could still give her an answer, but he asked the girl to hold that thought for a second. She told him he could take his time to decide, as long as he didn't leave for the next city first. She tried to say something, but he totally cut her off. He told her he had to explain what was going on. He promised he'd never leave her side and told her not to worry. She tells him they're hitting the guild to hunt serious monsters like dark Saras or bloody tigers, and she's already geared up and waiting the second he wakes up. He figured the monsters were already shaking just hearing her name. She thought she had to prove her worth for him to finally accept her. But honestly, he just wanted to keep her safe, so he wasn't. The big adventures can wait because he's got a way more important place to be, and the girl is just looking at him totally confused. Our hero says good morning to Sunisa and starts asking about his staff, but she totally cuts him off to say it's already good to go. She's totally shocked and asks if he uses a staff, but he tells her he's actually a swordsman. Then she asks who's standing next to Kade, but he says, this staff actually doubles as a blade she calls a witcher's sword, and the guy is totally blown away. He told her it was super cool, and she was like, I know, before saying his energy felt just like a staff. She asks why it looks like a sword, but Sumisa thinks it's not weird at all since the MC wanted one and it's honestly her best work yet. He felt like the weight of his weapons was a perfect fit. So she suggested he try using magic with them and pointed to a spot that would work. Our hero got straight to work. She was totally blown away by how much mana he was packing. She couldn't believe Ria could actually see the mana too. He knew right away this sword was way different from his old staff. He started slashing at everything in sight, and Ria was totally blown away by his insane speed. He was totally blown away by the speed, and figured it had to be the staff's material, because even though he could still see the shot, he was somehow sniping red wolves from him. She was blown away by his skills and asked how much mana he used, but he just shrugged and said it was only about 100, which was basically pocket change to him. She's totally shocked, saying that's enough magic for 5 whole mages, and asking if he's even human, but he just shrugs and says he's a normal guy with a... He told her the staff was straight up amazing, and that only she could have made it, giving her a massive thank. She got all flustered and told him that if he's actually into it, then she's totally cool with it. She suddenly remembered that the guy from the fuel shop was hunting him down all over town, saying he really needed to talk whenever he was free. The kid turns to face the guy. Mies welcomes him and says thanks for coming, and KD immediately asks what the heck happened. The man said the gear was all set and they'd already started mass production with 10 machines running, which totally blew the guy's mind. Mia said they were short-staffed at the shop, so he hit up the Coal Miners Association, and since they'd already heard about their work, they were totally down to team up. Production basically doubled, and the guy even joked that the Coal Miners Association was way too long of a name. Anyway, they gotta head to the workshop to see how the work is coming along, and our guy is totally down for it. She was totally shocked to see so many dwarves, and when the guy asked if they were all in the Coal Miners Association, Mehas told him that yeah, most of them were. A guy walks right up to them, gives his name, and reveals he's actually the big boss of the Coal Miners Association. The guy said he was stoked to meet him. The girl introduced herself too, and the man just grinned and called her a total firecracker. He told him they needed to talk, but first, he had to thank him for saving his life. Our main guy asks him what he's even talking about. The man realizes he's new in town, so he decides to fill him in. Turns out, a super weird disease has been spread. Once they heard about him, they finally felt safe enough to clear their heads and get to work. He figured the toxic gas in the mines was causing the sickness, so he asked the guy for the full story on what this disease actually does. They told him it was just a bad headache and some nausea, which are the exact same symptoms you get from a magic overload after eating wyvern meat. He's just glad everyone survived, but since they're still not at full strength, he's racking his brain to remember every single detail. He asks how they handle the sickness, and the guy says it's actually simple. Just stay away from the mines. But since the sick can only work 3 hours a day to keep from getting worse, they barely make enough cash to pay the workers. He thought he could just slack off all day, but now everyone is totally wiped out. It's definitely not the gas making them sick, so he's using his assessment skill to figure out what. He looked at the man and asked if he wanted him to handle the disease and wipe out the source for good. The guy promised to help them out big time and sent a guild request for a place no one had ever reached, betting that if our MC took the job, they'd actually pull it off. She asks if they're finally gonna wreck those monsters, but he just says no. Fighting isn't the point right now, so he tells her to stay back. He knows she'll... Rio was super annoyed they weren't going to scrap, so the guy asked if she was worried, but she just pointed off to the side and asked if the coal mines were that way. He looked over at the man who gave him a nod, and they ditched him because there were just way too many victims. Our hero asks her where the magic is leaking from, and she says the energy feels super weird as she points right at the guy who's messing with it. He didn't see what she was talking about, but that dwarf looked super pale, so he used his appraisal skill to check him out. A status screen pops up showing magical overload, which is basically this wild energy floating in the air like mana, and it turns out those weird colors she saw were actually monster energy causing all this chaos. He was finally starting to get what was going on, and when the boss asked how he was doing, he said the coal mines really beat him up, but he was still ready to work. The guy told him to stop pushing so hard and get some rest, especially since he realized the girl was a total natural despite being so young. He asked why he didn't just bring the girl along to explore, since they could always bail if monsters showed up, and the sickness barely even affects kids anyway. Ria told him they'd both be totally fine, and while he trusted her word, he was still way more worried about the monsters. He figured they could just bail if things got messy, and the girl was hyped when the hero finally let her tag along. She looked like she was actually flying, and he realized if that was one of her skills, she could easily escape whenever things got too dangerous. They walk right up to the mine entrance, but a big warning sign tells them to watch out for the deadly coal mine disease. He told her to give him a heads up if she spotted any monsters, and she was totally down for it. Those walls are going to make it super tough for her to track them, but she's still giving it a shot. The guy totally forgot that the walls nerf her powers, so in this mine, his detection is actually way better than hers. He spots the girl and asks if there's something hidden underground, and she's totally shocked by the question. Ria realized the vibes underground were way more careless and was shocked she missed it, while the guy just gave all the credit to his radar. He found a tiny 30-centimeter gap under the ground, and even though that was all he knew, he decided to go for it, and the girl was totally down. The two of them teamed up and used their magic to blast their way straight to the bottom of the mine. He smacked into something solid and asked what it was, but she told him this spot was totally different from the rest. She thinks it's just some old building, and when the guy asks if it's ancient ruins, Ria tells him it's actually a magic wall that even our MC can't break through. Once she said that, he was totally ready to crush her. He told her to get out of the way. She wondered if he was about to drop some magic, but she moved back anyway. The kid smashed a massive hole right through the floor, and when Ria asked if he was even human, he just said yeah. This is the first time he's ever powered up his magic in front of a girl, and when she calls him a monster, he just tells her she's got a lot of nerve. He started clearing a path with his pressure magic, and the walls didn't even crumble. Our guy was blown away that the wall didn't have a single scratch, and he realized the girl wasn't kidding about how tough it really was. But suddenly, the guy's focus was totally shattered. Cracks started ripping through the floor. The girl screamed for him to watch out. Then, the whole ground just gave way, and the heroes started crashing down. Ria screamed that the weight was way too much, and at this rate, they were all gonna snap. He begged her to let go so he could try to land, and she actually dropped him. He kept plummeting into the darkness with no end in sight, but his radar warned him that he was gonna smash into the floor in just 15 meters. He had to grab every single stone before they touched him, and he only had 3 seconds left before he hit the ground. The clock started ticking down, and he stuck the landing perfectly without a single scratch. He was feeling totally fine and thought he'd finally gotten stronger, right until some girl suddenly called out to him. She rushed over to make sure he was okay, and since it was pitch black, he asked if she had any light magic to help them see, which she totally did. As they walked through, he couldn't believe how massive and totally empty the room was, with nothing but bare walls in every direction. The girl thinks they're actually stuck inside the manga, so he asks her what she knows about this place, but she just says it feels super sloppy and unfinished. He asked if this was the source of all magic, but Ria could only take a wild guess. He knew they got super lucky, but right now, they just had to get out of there and tell everyone what happened. He was racking his brain for a way to get them out of there. He asked the girl if she could just fly them to safety. She told him she couldn't actually go that high up. Kay figured she was gliding with jet boosters, but she couldn't actually fly very high. He asked her how she felt about him using magic, since his massive power could easily lift her right up. She wasn't having it, arguing that he's so out of control he'd probably kill her by yanking her up way too fast. The main guy decides they need a new exit, and asks her where people are the most careless. So once she points to the right, he leads her straight there. The girl was itching for a fight, but Kai reminded her they were only there to investigate and told her to go scout for monsters instead. She points right at him and says he's the big one she was talking about, and man, he is absolutely fuming. He spotted the hole they fell through and realized they were just going in circles, and the girl told him he was totally right. He thought the building was shaped like a cube, but it turned out to be nothing but walls everywhere. Our hero and his girls follow the massive wall until they reach the gate, where he just stands there waiting for it to finally swing open. She stares hard at the gate and tells our hero she's totally on his side. This section of the wall is giving off some seriously weird vibes. The guy watches her closely, feeling a little on. His partner spots something and shouts that they've finally found the wall, confirming it's the right one because it doesn't react to magic at all, while our hero just stares ahead in silence. He takes a look and realizes it's actually a door hidden as a wall, and Kurisu Zumiya figures out his radar is totally blind to whatever is waiting on the other side. He's ready to make his move. He walks right up to the gate, convinced there's a way to crack it open. His partner watches him like a hawk. She asks him if... The guy confirms it's true, but then he spots a fresh scratch on the door that proves someone has definitely been inside before. He warns everyone to stay sharp since they have no clue what's... His friend screams "Open Sesame" at the top of her lungs, and he knows all that noise is going to get them in huge trouble. He asks her if she's seriously joking around. Out of nowhere, he hears this super weird buzzing sound and stares straight into the pitch-black darkness past the open door. Suddenly, a massive swarm of creepy monsters dives right at the group, buzzing like crazy and looking totally ready to attack. These monsters look like wasps in heavy armor, and they suddenly stop dead in the air to aim their stingers right at the squad. They start unloading their rage directly at our hero and his friend. He sees the danger coming and immediately throws himself over the girl to protect her. He turns toward Ria-chan, his face. Suddenly, the stingers just freeze right in midair, and our hero is totally stunned as he keeps his body over the girl to protect her. The swords slam into the ground with a massive crash, and the guy is totally shocked, staring at his enemies and wondering if his friend was the one who actually took them down. The monsters start closing in again, and our hero knows he's got to stop overthinking and just move. He knows he's got to take these monsters out first. He charges straight at his enemies. He grips his Witcher sword as hard as he can. This guy swings his blade and shreds his enemies into tiny pieces. After taking down the monsters that had the heroes shaking, he checks on the girl, and she tells him she's totally fine while saying sorry. He tells her he's just glad she's safe, but then he asks if she really blocked those needles. She shakes her head and denies everything, but then her friend points right at our hero and says he's the one who did it, leaving him totally stunned and asking her for the truth one more time. She tells him their magic is super weak and just fizzles out the second they get close to him. The guy just smirks and calls the whole thing totally pathetic. The girl agrees that her partner is a total weirdo, and then Kaede Suzumiya asks her to repeat what. Suddenly, she gets dead serious and says those monsters felt super weird to her too, so it's obvious she knows way more than our main guy. The squad spots a bunch of junk under their feet from the monsters the kid just shredded, and it looks just like some kind of crazy magical gear. He checks out the details and realizes these monsters are actually magic weapons built to crush intruders, like those floating eye guards and the low-level magic isolation door, which are all special items known as. So this place is actually an ancient ruin, and once he figures that out, he realizes they're basically crashing the party. He smirks, realizing they're definitely not allowed to see what's hiding behind that door. Kara Suzumiya and his friends stare into the shadows as he warns that there's no telling what kind of creepy monsters are lurking behind that door. He asks her if they should head back, but then it hits him. Even if they go back, they don't really have a home to return to. He knows things are messed. Our hero scans the pitch-black shadows, keeping his eyes peeled for any danger. Suddenly, a door swings wide open right in front of him. He and his partner don't waste any. He tells her he cleared every single room while following the rules, and she nods along while scanning the place herself. He spots 8 more doors hidden inside, but the rooms behind them are a total disaster. Floating guards were everywhere, but there wasn't a single path leading to the magic source or even the way out. Our hero walks up to some signs saying this is a research center, and after a quick look around, he's sure he's finally in the right spot. The guy is totally confused and asks what to do next, when suddenly, a blinding light rips through the dark. The girl sprints down the spiral stairs, leaving her partner in the dust. Our hero follows her slowly, keeping his eyes peeled for any trouble. He makes up his mind right then that he's going. These stairs are seriously endless, so it takes forever just to reach the bottom. Just as the hero hits the ground, the young guy suddenly spots something weird. He looks ahead and spots another door right in front of them with huge letters written all over it. So he walks up to read the warning that says anyone who shouldn't be there is getting wiped out. Our guy realizes this is a warning, but he just smirks, saying the danger behind the door is way crazier than what they've seen. He decides to chug a potion, so Togo, our hero, decides he's not feeding anyone to monsters and is finding a way out of this hole, so he chugs a potion to get some guts. There's no way they're getting out without a brawl, so he tells her to stay sharp and she promises to be careful. Our guy reaches out and puts his hand right on the door. The door flies open, and the squad is finally standing right at the entrance. A bunch of blades fly right at the couple, and our hero can't believe there's actually another guard waiting to jump them. He knocks the attack away and jumps in front of the girl to shield her again. He's wondering if he actually got hit, remembering how those needles used to fall before they even reached him. But now everything is totally different. But then she reveals there are others hiding among the monsters, and he just freezes up in pure terror. The space around it is literally starting to warp and crack open. Monsters just start bursting right out of them. Mixed in with the rest is a brand new species that looks just like a pack of wolves. He takes a closer look and notices the floating guards have changed color, and those mechanical tops are honestly scaring him way more now. A massive flying snake suddenly shows up with the rest of the monsters. It's way bigger than anything else they've had to fight, and our hero jumps right in to keep his partner safe. She says she feels totally ignored, but honestly, that's the least of her worries right now. Suddenly, the monsters launch their big attack. He screams at his friend to run for her life and save herself while she still can. She turns to him and says she needs a stone spear, and he tells her he's totally on it. He's pushing hard to keep up, but his feet lose their grip and he slips right on the floor. This dude steps up to distract a massive snake that's literally flying through the sky. His best friend is watching the whole thing super closely, just waiting for the perfect second to jump in and help. She finally sees her opening and lets loose her stone spear move. Those monsters just keep closing in on our hero and his partner. The girl is totally terrified, staring at those creepy monsters with pure horror in her eyes. He asks her if his magic even works on these monsters, hoping that with her help, he can stop the invasion and save everyone. She screams at the top of her lungs that one of those monsters is chasing him down. This beast turns out to be a massive wolf that's also decked out in heavy armor. Our guy isn't even sure if these things are actually robots, but they're way too quiet, and since magic is useless, he decides it's time to let them taste his sword. He puts every bit of power into his fist and smashes the ball into the guy, sending him flying way back. His sword crashes down, hitting the floor with a loud metallic ring. He knows this guy is a total beast, but he's definitely hiding some serious power of his own. He gives it everything he's got and slices the guy right in half. He stands over his defeated rival and says that even though the witch's sword can still cut him, she's got one major problem. He can totally slice through every enemy without using a single drop of magic. Nobody has any idea what this weird metal is made of. Our guy is starting to think there's a huge catch. Our guy whips out his assessment skill to see exactly what he's dealing with. He finds out this is Category 2 Infantry Anti-Magic Steel, packed with crystals that basically delete any magic they touch. These bad guys are totally immune to magic, and it looks like every magic tool in the room is useless too, just as the hero's partner rushes to his side. She tells the guy they need every stone copy they can find so they can blast those colorful guards with a massive hail of shells, and our hero thinks this plan is exactly the edge they need to win. She chucks these stones that blow up mid-air, turning into a crazy rain of shells. He keeps swinging that blade, dropping enemies left and right. He says he can finally focus all his attention on those wolves. But there's still one huge problem that nobody has figured out yet. That massive flying snake is a total nightmare that won't leave him alone, and now it's back, hovering right next to him and ready to slam its giant tail down. He knows exactly what's about to go down, so he turns to his partner and tells her to jump. The snake slams its tail right into the ground. Suddenly, every single thing on the ground just blasts straight into the air. Our hero and the girl barely made the jump in time. Once the chaos finally stops, they land on the ground like total pros. Our hero asks his friend why that snake is so insanely strong, especially since she's ignoring the magic gear she's supposed to guard and just wrecking everything along with the heroes. His partner yells that the snake is charging up another massive blast, and he just stares at the beast in total horror. That snake is totally gearing up for something massive. Parts of her body can literally just pop right off. Our guy watches the whole mess go down and realizes things are looking really bad. He screams to his partner that they're bailing and need to book it to the stairs. This guy and girl are heading straight for that open door. They're pushing themselves to the absolute limit and sprinting as fast as they can. That flying snake is insanely fast and catches up to the group in a heartbeat, leaving them totally terrified. A massive chunk of iron flies right at them, barely missing but slamming down to block their path. The guy and the girls freeze in total shock, staring at the giant metal beam. Our hero admits that things are looking really bad for them. Right then, the flying snake smashes through the door, and since there's nowhere left to run, the heroes have no choice but to fight back. Those flying guards are buzzing like crazy right over their heads. Suddenly, a pack of metal wolves starts swarming the guys from every single direction. He looks the truth right in the face and says the only thing left to do is take these guys down. He knows he's got to deal with this snake, but his own power just isn't going to cut it. He turns to his partner and asks if she can use his magic to force the beast. She says snakes have wings too, and the guy spins around totally freaked out, asking what kind of wings she's even talking about. She says they can totally ground that snake by using a fireball to blast its wings right off. He's totally down with the plan and tells her he's going to start charging up that fireball. The guy asks her to shout when his sword is charged enough for Togo to crush the competition. She tells him she's got his back, and he starts sprinting all over the place. Thick smoke starts filling up every single inch of the room. Our guy locks in and gets a death grip on his sword. She screams that this charge is all Togo needs for a killer blow, and the guy shouts back that he's totally on it. He slams his enemies with a move that drains a massive 700 mana points. The kid actually pulls it off and builds these massive firework bombs. The snake backs away and starts tucking its wings out of sight. His girlfriend screams at the top of her lungs as she literally shoves them all inside her body. Our hero watches as the blast from the guy's attack just keeps getting bigger. The fire is just swallowing up everything in sight. Our guy is totally freaking out, but he's also super hyped at the same time. The flames finally catch the snake and start slowly roasting it. Our hero watches every move, realizing that blast should have shredded her wings, but something definitely went sideways, giving him the chance to slip away. The squad suddenly spots something super weird way off in the distance. He turns to his girlfriend and asks if she can handle him this time, but she says his mana is just way too massive for her to control. He realizes the fireball is locked onto him, but he can still hit those hidden wings without perfect aim if he just cranks up the power. He knows he needs to go big, wondering exactly how much energy it'll take to blast them into nothing. She tells him he's got to crank that power up 20 times over. He's totally down with her plan and says they're doing it, but he asks her to buy him some time. Sma is absolutely losing it right now and is hunting down our hero and his girlfriend. She starts hitting Togo with everything she's got to stall her, giving the guy just enough time to charge up his massive final attack. Right then, our guy is spinning through the air and sharpening his sword. He's totally hidden behind a massive cloud of smoke. They burst right out of the smoke to go after the hero's snake. He's got that look on his face like he's already won, ready to take down his enemy and finally bust out of here. He claims he's still charging up his big spell, but every magic tool he had is totally trashed except for that snake. The ground starts crumbling right under him, but he's still dodging every single attack like a total pro. The crew realizes that if they keep this energy up, they'll definitely crush that snake, and now they're finally feeling hyped and ready to win. Even so, our guy can't shake this bad feeling, when suddenly, rocks start crashing down right next to him. He whips his head around and sees that the very thing he tried to wash away just happened anyway. The guy looks up at the ceiling and freezes in pure horror, making his friend ask what the heck is going on. She looks up and man, what she sees is straight up terrifying. The guy and his crew look up and see something totally insane. The ceiling is literally splitting apart at the seams. Massive cracks are spiderwebbing across the whole surface. Rocks and dust. He sees the snake totally wreck the wall, and as the roof starts to crumble, he realizes there's nothing left to hold it up. He screams at his friend that they're about to be buried alive, asking her if 10 hits can finish the guy, but she says they'll need to double their power to actually stand. The guy yells that this isn't gonna work either because he's totally out of time. He doesn't even get a second to think before something massive slams into the floor. Our guy is hanging on for dear life just to keep from getting tossed aside. He turns to his girl and asks her how she's feeling and if she's doing all right. Your partner's eyes start welling up with tears as she looks at her friend, and even though she desperately wants to say something, she's so choked up that the words just won. The guy scans the area, making sure he doesn't miss a single thing. Right as the ceiling starts caving in, he screams the rest of his message to his girlfriend. The girl is totally freaked out and asks him what the heck they should do next. Our hero yells at her to stop freezing up and just run for cover as fast as she can. But then he says they can't let this chance slip by, so they sprint to the other side of the room to find an exit, and the girl is totally down with whatever he says. That snake is still going absolutely wild, lunging down and barely missing our hero by an inch. He's sprinting with everything he's got, weaving and dodging past all the snakes snapping at his feet. She's clinging to her friend like she's never gonna let go. He realizes there are no turns in sight, and being stuck in a straight hallway is a total nightmare for them right now. The guys keep heading deeper and deeper, praying that there's actually something waiting for them down those stairs. Our hero charges right at the wall while clutching something tight in her arms. The guy panics as he realizes they've hit a dead end, and now they're in huge trouble. He looks back and spots the snake closing in, moving just as fast as a regular human. She's actually flying straight for the heroes and is totally ready to strike right now. Our hero is ready to fight to the death to keep his girl safe, even though he knows they're in deep trouble. He sees the ceiling stopped falling, but if that snake keeps going crazy, he thinks he can reach the stairs by heading through that smashed door. But if he tries to clear out all the heavy rocks in his inventory, he'll be stuck dodging the snake. The whole time she's just staring at him like she feels totally sorry for him. The look on her face says it all as she gets ready to head off to a brand new world. His girlfriend screams for him to hurry up and toss her a fireball, and he's totally blown away by her wild request. He asks if she's got a plan, but she reminds him that she already said she can't control this insane magic. She looks him dead in the eye and tells him that even now she's still gonna do what she has to do. He realizes she's totally winging it too, but they don't have a single second to waste. With his back totally against the wall, our guy has no choice but to step up and help his friend. She's pushing her limits to force her magic out, and bit by bit, it's actually starting to work. She gives it everything she's got until this crazy magical glow starts pouring out of her, making the other girl scream because she can't handle the power. But her hairpin kicks in just in time to keep all that wild energy under control. He watches the whole thing and realizes she's using her own magic to cancel out every attack, while that hairpin starts soaking up all the damage for her. He realizes this is way too dangerous and she needs to stop right now, but just as he tries to step in and help, she totally shuts him down. She doesn't even crack a smile while saying adventures are a blast, then asks the MC if he's not having fun too. The guy is totally shocked as he stares at her. He's way too scared to even try fighting back anymore. He has no clue what's actually going on with this girl right now. He thinks she's just acting brave, but she really only said that to get him to leave her alone. He smirks and plays hard to get, but he's actually totally on her side. He pushes his feelings aside and decides to back up his friend. Now he's staring down. She finally masters her magic and is ready to unleash an attack. Huge flames are trapping our heroes and burning down everything in their way. The MC's buddy lets out Winston's battle cry and launches a flareball straight at the enemy. This massive fireball is just hovering right there in the sky. Our hero screams at his friend to keep pushing and never look back, because he's 100% sure she's gonna make it. The snake jumps into the fight and charges right at the heroes, snapping its jaws open to show off those sharp, flashing fangs. He keeps cheering her on, screaming at the top of his lungs for her to just go for it. She's pushing her body to the absolute limit to keep the magic under control, screaming at the top of her lungs from the sheer pressure. A massive fireball rockets straight toward the snake. The second it hits, it swallows them in fire and starts eating them up. She's totally wiped out and just collapses right there on the dirt. Our guy doesn't waste a second and sprints over to back her up. So our guy decides it's finally time to step up and finish this guy off. He flies right up to the snake and jams his sword straight into its head. He feels his sword hitting way more resistance than usual because the metal on that snake's head is insanely tough. He remembers his friend worked way too hard to give him this shot, so there's no way he's gonna let it go to waste. He knows he can't blow this shot, so he keeps stabbing the snake's head over and over while screaming insults at the monster. A bunch of massive explosions suddenly rip through the air. The giant snake slams into the ground, but our hero leaps off just in time. He sticks the landing perfectly as the enemy collapses at his feet, showing off a snake head that's totally scorched by fire and absolutely wrecked from the beating he just handed out. He glares at his beaten enemy with pure rage, looking totally wiped out after that insane battle. He's barely catching his breath after that brutal fight when suddenly, a song starts playing from right behind him. He whips around and spots the girl, and his girlfriend calls out his name. A guy walks up to her, and when she asks if he's already eaten lunch, he just nods and asks if she's doing okay. They walk right past the dead snake, and when the guy asks if she senses any bad vibes, she admits that the whole room still feels totally off to her. She flashes a sweet smile and says she's sure everything will be over in just a week. The guy flashes a massive grin and says they finally pulled it off, telling everyone it's time to get out of there. Since the path back is totally blocked, they have to clear all that rubble. Looking at the massive mountain of work ahead, the guy let out a totally weird sigh. Our guy plops down and tells her she needs a breather, and since she's totally wiped out from the fight, she sits right next to him and agrees. He glances over at his friend and suddenly spots the hairpin she's wearing. She looks totally normal, but she was actually the secret MVP of this whole fight. He calls her out for putting them both in danger, hoping the magic finally snaps and goes out of control. He asks her how she's holding up, and she admits the power did. She laughs at her marks since everything turned out fine, but she's already wondering what kind of craziness is going to happen next. The guy just smirks and says he better pray there isn't a next time, because if every adventure is this wild, he's definitely not going to live much longer. She flashes a smile and totally agrees with him, calling out his name because she's got a question she needs to ask. She's totally wondering if he'll actually bring her along for the next one. He gives a sneaky little smirk and lets out a long sigh. He says she just proved she can totally hold her own in a fight and use what she bought to escape if things get dangerous. He's not going to stop anyone from going on an adventure as long as they've got the skills, even if that person is just a little girl. Plus, they're all basically Che. He reaches out his hand and tells his girlfriend they should keep traveling together, but just as friends from now on. She looks at him all shy and shocked at first, but she doesn't even try to hide how totally blown away she is. Then she just flashes this big happy grin like a total kid. She says yes to his plan and dives straight into his arms. Our MC decides to spill the big news after he and his buddy got a massive level boost from surviving that total death trap. He hoists the girl onto his shoulders, explaining that he found those magic items in some underground ruins while investigating the miner's sickness. But she's totally zonked out and doesn't hear a word. Our hero walks up to two girls, and they immediately start asking him about those mysterious underground ruins. One of the girls explains that the magic class is basically E rank level, while Blue Magic 1 is a step up at D rank. These monsters look just like wolves, they're B rank threats, and they're called blue metal wolves. The girls are totally shocked and ask if they really took down every single one of them. This guy is absolutely massive as he helps his girlfriend get settled at the table. She's watching all of this go down and she's totally stunned. A crowd swarms the snake you just took down, staring at its weird wings and wondering what the heck they even are. Our hero points out all the magic tools they just wrecked. The biggest one was definitely the source of the plague. Soon enough, everyone will just forget this whole mess ever happened. The girls ask if his partner really fought too, totally hyped that he crushed a mission in just half a day that would have been impossible for anyone else. They give the hero a massive thank you for all the hard work he put in. They stared at this massive object, totally stunned because they'd never seen anything like it before. One of the girls says she remembers every single item from the photo in ruins, so if she's never seen this artifact before, the guild definitely won't have a clue. He realizes the guild is totally clueless too, and it's weird because his new skills should have let him scan the guy easily. He fires up his assessment skill to see exactly what he's dealing with. He finds out this is a test version of a massive destruction cannon called Snake No. 1. He thinks it over and realizes it really is a snake, and after checking the ruins one last time, he finds out the whole place was abandoned because that beast was totally out of control. He realizes that if the girls catch him snooping into their family business, he's totally cooked. He knows he's got to keep his mouth shut to stay safe. But then Kira, the hero's like, "Yeah, I've been using my tail to shred those metal wolves left and right." He says he took down 30 wolves, but that snake definitely wrecked way more than he did, leaving the girls totally shocked as they ask if he really fought off 30 metal wolves all by himself. One of the girls shouts that since they survived against so many enemies, they're basically as strong as A-rank adventurers. She totally thinks that snake was just as high-ranked, and right at that moment, the girl finally wakes up from her nap on the guy's shoulder. After they finish the talk, it looks like our hero is officially hitting B rank, which is the absolute highest level a young guy can reach since you need some serious leadership skills to get there. He's starting to feel like he just pulled off something totally legendary. Our main guy shouts out to a friend, and the dude spins around to face him. The guy says they already handled the kid's sickness and wrapped the whole thing up 3 days ago. These guys are just staring at our heroes, totally confused by what they're seeing. One of them is totally shocked and asks if they really finished the investigation and solved the problem that fast. He says that right after he turned in his report, the whole conversation shifted to some mysterious substance. They're all focused on keeping their secret tech safe and making way more of it, because this kingdom is finally ready to start selling. They paid the fee for the tech, and our guy is sure this crazy invention is going to change the whole country forever. He suddenly stops in his tracks, realizing this whole situation is way too massive for him to handle. He was supposed to be in the capital cutting a deal with the kingdom, but instead, he just handed over the profits and all the responsibility to the Coal Miners Association. He's still out there living the adventurer life, and his journey is far from over. The week totally flew by, and the deal with the coal miners was a huge success. Once he told the guild she was officially joining the squad, she finally got her own guild card. He even, compared to those massive country-level disasters, this is still basically nothing. This guy walks right up to a girl and starts asking her about a hairpin. He's totally confused because she was pitch black when they left the ruins, but now she's full of color again. She explains that his massive blast of magic was exactly what she needed to fully recharge. Usually it takes her 30 whole years to charge up, but this time she pulled it off in just a few days. He gives a nervous grin and wonders what kind of crazy nuclear man he's actually got. He wonders if blasting his magic straight at her would charge the hairpin faster, but she warns him it'll just break. This mysterious girl suddenly walks in and starts apologizing for being so heavy. She says the magic is finally gone from the Iron Lizard's metal, so now our guy can work on it anywhere with the right tools, and he's super grateful for the help. He asks his partner if she wants the armor, but she tells him no because it's way too heavy. The girl asks if they're heading to a new city, and the guy says he's thinking about it, but for now, they're just gonna follow the road and see where it takes them. The whole room goes dead silent and things get super awkward. The MC's best friend feels something right behind him and whips around instantly. Everything looks totally normal in the back, and the guy is just casually loading the bags like it's no big deal. The girls ask him what's going on, and he just tells them he felt like something was missing. He asks his girlfriend what's going on, and she tells him the magic just vanished 100 kilometers away. Our guy is completely shocked and has no clue who actually stopped that massive energy blast. But since even he can feel the power, it's gotta be something absolutely insane. But he can't exactly claim that no one else in the world is capable of pulling off a spell this massive. He can tell that an artifact way more powerful than a flying snake just got turned off. Does he even realize something crazy just went down behind that mountain? The guy turns to Sumishin and asks what cities are hundreds of kilometers away in that direction, so she starts listing off all the towns sitting right at the base of the volcano. She asks if he's actually serious about going there, warning him that a crazy, dangerous dungeon full of high-level monsters is blocking the way. Our hero just smirks and says if that's the deal, then they're heading straight to Orteon. Our hero gets totally fired up and tells them that this is gonna make the fight way more fun for everyone. She flashes a huge smile, totally hyped for all the wild adventures coming her way. This mystery girl just smirks and tells him she totally saw that coming. Our hero is the youngest guy around, and since his girlfriend is a total pro-adventurer, they finally ditched Herrera to start their journey. 3 hours after they leave the ground, the real chaos finally kicks off. This guy and his girlfriend are literally soaring through the sky upside down. Suddenly, he senses something off and whips his head around. He turns to his girlfriend to make sure she's all right, and she tells him she's doing just fine. He blurts out that she doesn't look tired at all and is probably just bored out of her mind. She's constantly floating around with zero side effects, probably because she's fueling up on his leaked magic, and while she isn't super fast, she can totally keep pace as long as he doesn't hit the gas. If they keep this up, they're gonna hit the target spot in just a few minutes. His buddy spots a pack of monsters up ahead and gets super hyped to tell him the news. The guy straight up calls her out and says she's the one who killed them. He wanted to reach the city as fast as possible, but it looks like things weren't going to be that easy. A massive swarm of monsters is standing right in their path. A massive army of monsters blocks his path, and the girl is totally stunned by what she sees. Our hero says he's seeing things differently now and it's time for a warm-up, so the girl gets ready and they both charge straight at the monsters. Our heroes push through the massive crowd, heading straight for one another. The second they clash in the center, it turns into a total bloodbath. He yells for his girl to jump in but keep them alive, and while she's down for it, she's totally confused why they have to hold back. The guy asks if she's blind, 'cause those monsters look straight up delicious, and it'd be a total waste not to kill every single one of them. She asks if they can eat these things since she's never seen monsters like this before, and the guy just stares at her in total shock. He figures out that looking like a crab doesn't mean it's actually edible, so he uses his assessment skill to see what's really up. Right in the middle of the test, our guy realizes he's actually on the menu after all. He's absolutely hyped, but then the girl screams that monsters are swarming in from the other side too, and the guy just grins and asks what the plan is this time. Out of nowhere, the look in his eyes completely flips. Meanwhile, our hero is walking right up to some nasty brown cockroaches. Believe it or not, these things are actually edible. But man, they look way too gross to even think about eating. The guy stares at them, looking absolutely terrified. He tells his girlfriend it's finally time for them to get out of there. She asks why they're running from such weaklings, and he just says they totally ruined his appetite. I keep pushing forward while the guy finally stops to catch his breath, feeling totally relieved they actually lost the people chasing them. They finally make it to the city, and the guy realizes that traveling with a kid is actually pretty weird. A guy in a uniform stops them and warns that the roads are crawling with monsters, but when he asks if they're all right, the girl just screams that those monsters are actually total weaklings. The guy says it's a low-rank monster, but he's pretty sure it's way stronger than it looks. The guy takes one look at their weapons and realizes they're definitely the real deal. He knows his Witcher sword looks special to everyone, not just blacksmiths, and he says they can take down these monsters easily, unless they're fighting cockroaches. He asks what's going on and why the city is suddenly crawling with all these monsters. The guy nervously explains that 4 massive forests full of monsters surround the city, and lately, those beasts have been breaking out of one forest to invade the others. But get this, every single monster the heroes ran into was actually heading the exact same way. He asks why everyone is moving, and the guy says he doesn't know much, but rumors say the guild definitely has the answers. He just laughs because they didn't even send their top-tier team, making him think this whole thing is a total joke. Our main guy thinks the guild is hiding secrets again, just like they did with the metal lizard and that hideout, and he's wondering if this is about to be another huge disaster. As the crew hangs out and chats, the MC's girlfriend is bouncing around them like crazy. She freaks out and jumps into his arms, screaming to know what's happening, but he just chills her out by saying it's a regular earthquake from the volcanoes nearby. Suddenly, a weird smell hits everyone, and the guy figures it's just sulfur from the city, while the guard shrugs off the recent earthquakes as no big deal. He adds that this is easily one of the coolest things about the whole city. He gives the heroes a massive welcome to the city and tells them they're always invited back anytime. Our hero and his buddy look around and find themselves in a city packed with ancient ruins and steamy hot springs. Our guy was totally blown away to find out there were actually hot springs right here. This city is absolutely loaded and everyone here is living in total luxury. Staying at these springs for just one night costs way more than their old city. But our hero knows he's getting his money's worth because the rooms inside are actually super nice and cozy. He scans the place and spots 3 separate rooms plus a whole kitchen. He asks his friend if she can use her magic to cook up those crabs, and she's totally down to help him out. Our guy is keeping his eyes glued to every single move in the kitchen. Out of nowhere, one of the crab's claws starts to twitch, but something totally sidetracks him and he doesn't even notice. The ground starts shaking again, so he tells the girl to back away from the pot before she gets splashed with boiling water. He's honestly just super hyped that she's finally gotten the hang of floating around. Once the crab was finally ready, his buddy sat down to feast while our MC told everyone to dig in. The guy cracked open the shell to get at all that juicy crab meat. He stumbled right onto one of the most mysterious pieces he'd ever seen. The guy finally gives it a taste to see what he's dealing with. He's totally loving the flavor and how it's cooked, even though he says it tastes just like a normal crab. Then his girlfriend steps up and grabs a taste for herself too. She says it actually turned out super delicious. He tells her to save some for breakfast and stashes the leftovers in his inventory. And since she's totally stuffed, she starts feeling super sleepy. She's being put through total misery and is so exhausted she's literally nodding off right at the table. He watches her and feels a bit emotional, seeing her pass out right after dinner like a regular kid despite not knowing her age. So he decides it's finally time to get some sleep himself. He tucks the hero into bed and just watches her snore away like a total baby. Our MC stops to think for a second and lets out a huge sigh. He's got to figure out why the magic levels totally tanked back in that other city. But first, he definitely needs to chill and get some sleep. He remembers they hit up the springs and notices vines hanging everywhere in the open air. Since the city was totally out of fuel, there were no hot showers, so he literally had to wash himself with nothing but a single water balloon. While his girlfriend was fast asleep, the guy decided to finally ditch those steaming hot bones. Our MC sighs and says the water's a bit hot, but it still feels pretty great. Suddenly, something catches his eye and he slowly spins around to see what's up. He realizes there's no shampoo anywhere, but it makes sense since plain water is enough to wash all the dirt off your body and clothes. He figured this weird power was coming from an artifact, and if anyone broke it, things would go south fast. The guy starts looking around, but then he feels those weird tremors shaking the ground beneath him again. Our guy just figures it's another earthquake shaking things up. Out of nowhere, he literally bolts out of the bathroom. He suddenly remembers his girlfriend is all alone back at the hotel, and he's starting to get a really bad vibe that something is wrong. He thinks the earthquake totally freaked her out, but her floating powers should keep her safe, even though he knows she can't really hover while she's fast asleep. That noise is getting way louder. She's flying straight for us. The girl totally crashes the bathhouse, and even though the guy is yelling for her to get out, she just ignores him and shouts his name. She dives into the water right next to him. Her expression totally flips as she starts messing around with a rubber duck, leaving the guy just staring at her, completely lost. A little while later, she finally heads back to bed. Our MC stands over her bed, watching her sleep while he thinks. He thinks she's just being quiet, but she's actually totally passed out. He's itching to head over to. He agrees to the plan while praying another earthquake doesn't hit. Then he books it straight back to the Adventurers Guild as fast as he can. He shows up and asks for the full scoop on the mission. He says he's checking out the artifact, but he's really trying to figure out where all that massive magic power vanished to. He says it feels just like Herrera all over again, and the only quest that fits is figuring out why everyone is turning into monsters. The guy warns them to keep the artifact a secret from the guild, then says he's heading into the forest, while our MC wonders if the guild even knows what's going down there. He's trying to see what the guild already knows so he doesn't waste time on old info, but the girl he asks totally freezes up. She says sorry and admits she's got zero clue about this forest either. Our MC stares at her, totally caught off guard. The people taking care of her tell everyone she's just an intern. The guy looks totally bummed out as he turns to her and says she's not even trying to play dumb anymore. They're still totally clueless, but word is the guilds are the ones who actually know the truth. This guy knows the rumors are 100% real, and they're even hiding the truth from their own workers. None of the other workers knew a thing, so he says sorry, but he's gonna have to get tough with the girl, while our hero heads off to find out why all that huge magic. He already knows this is all linked to the artifact, and the girl is totally blown away by his insane speed. He tells them to keep moving because he's sure there's something hiding deep in the forest. Suddenly, another woman walks into the room and tells him to knock it off. She tells him to follow her because she needs to hear every detail about what he discovered. The guy walks out, leaving the intern totally clueless, and heads straight to the table to start making a deal with his new contact. She asks the guy just how much he really knows about artifacts. He says he knew those artifacts were the key and figures she's some kind of big shot. But even though he wants to spill the truth, he's got a bad feeling that things are about to go wrong. While hanging out in Herrera, he suddenly felt something super off, and his magic expert friend confirmed that a ton of mana had just vanished, meaning only a crazy powerful artifact could be responsible. She thinks it over and realizes their secret is still totally safe. She asks him for his girlfriend's name, and the guy just tells her straight up. She repeats the name to herself until it finally clicks, and she remembers exactly who he is. The guy checks out everything in Takeland, but he's low-key mad you brought up his girl and is totally losing it over how you even know their names. She just smirks and says everything is going exactly how she expected. She says a new report just dropped about some adventurers who showed up, and word is, a few of them are insanely powerful. A few volunteers can actually make the trip from Herrera to Arteon in a single day. But our heroes were so fast they did it in just 3.5 hours, which is exactly why that woman doesn't have all the facts on them yet. Even without any phones, news travels crazy fast because they use magic to send messages. This is the one group he was totally trying to avoid. He asks if the artifact's secrets are still safe. She tells him only a few workers and adventurers even know it exists. She says they were about to tell the whole world, but an outsider shut it down, and now our MC is sure some big boss is keeping it a secret. He says the guild is a total powerhouse, and the only person who could actually boss them around is some high-ranking lord. The hero asks if they always need outside info to uncover the truth, but she explains they only do that when there's no big rush. The guy asks if they're really in no rush, and she tells him he's totally right. She tells him they already caught the guys responsible and took them out for good. Our guy thinks the mess is already fixed, but she tells him if he wants to go solo and investigate, he's got to follow some strict rules. She tells him to drop her name and make it clear he's only there because of Lasius. She tells him she's down to help if he has any questions, and since that's a pretty sweet deal, he just nods and says he gets it. Finally, the guy makes it back to his place. He ended up finding absolutely nothing, but she realized that since the monster kept moving even after the lights were cut, the artifact had to be right there. So he just shut the whole thing down and he figures that finding the way is his best shot at getting the answers he needs. The very next day, our hero and his girlfriend head out to start wrecking some monsters. The guy says they're finally at the forest where the magic went dead, and now they're gonna take down every monster in sight while hunting for clues about the artifact. He tells her to give him a heads up if she senses a monster or any weird magic, and she's totally down for it. She says it's actually way harder to track down a busted magic tool than anything else. To our hero, sensing an artifact with zero magic is barely even a challenge. For a normal person, it would be totally impossible. But instead of showing off, he just nods and agrees with her. He asks her if she has any clue which way they're supposed to aim to finally wreck the artifact. The girl says she's got absolutely no clue. There are tons of massive power levels popping up, and they've got the whole place surrounded. Our main guy decides to go all out to get the job done. He tells her they should just search every single inch of the place. The girl is totally hyped and jumps on board with the plan. Our hero charges straight into the deepest part of the forest. That place is crawling with those nasty fang wolves. She fires off these crazy rays of magic. They sink their teeth into the wolves and rip them right down to the ground. The hunt actually ends up being a total win. Out of nowhere, the guys look back and see a whole pack of wild boars with a huge boss charging right behind them. They start blasting fireballs right back at him, but he just keeps pushing deeper and deeper inside. They've got each other's backs and are moving together like a total dream team. Our hero is totally locked in, keeping his cool while he figures out his next move. Both heroes have perfect aim and nail their targets right on the money. Our guy tells himself he's got to take down every single enemy in the area. Out of nowhere, he hears some creepy noises and freezes right in his tracks. He watches his girlfriend taking on a massive swarm of monsters and is totally blown away by how many there are. He's watching the fight and realizes the girl is dropping enemies way faster than he can loot them, especially since he has to walk right up to every body just to put it in his inventory. He suggests using magic to make the job way easier, like baiting the corpses with mana, and it turns out our main guy already tried something just like that. He's just dragging a dead monster when he accidentally yanks something else along with it, and even he's totally freaked out by what he found. She stares at her friend, totally blown away. She asks what he's up to, and he tells her he's just reminding himself how sloppy his magic control has become. He tells her they can use magic to drag the dead monsters over to loot them faster, but she sadly admits they're way too heavy to move. She turns to him and tells him to pick up the pace, asking why he isn't just using speed magic to get it done faster. He's totally clueless and asks what kind of magic she's talking about, wondering if it's just that basic stuff used for traveling. It looks like he just needs to flood his body with mana to power up and wipe it out, so the crew decides to give it a shot later. The girl begs him to stop charging toward her so fast. To play it safe, he tests a small speed boost and shouts out his acceleration magic. She's keeping a super close eye on her friend, watching her every move. The guy sees nothing's happening and asks you if he used too little mana, so he decides to give it another shot. This time, our boy just blasts off at a totally insane speed. She watches in total horror as he moves with insane speed. He flips through the air, freaking out because he's completely lost control of the situation.
It's getting blown way out into the distance. Our guy slams straight into a tree with everything he's got.
He steps out from under the tree, looking like a total mess of swirling smoke. Our hero starts complaining that this magic is honestly a total pain to deal with. Rhea is totally freaked out and rushes over to check on Cade, but he just plays it cool and tells her he's totally fine. He asks if she's only freaking out because of his clothes, since he's actually standing there without a single scratch. He suddenly remembers his clothes have a secret ability that trades mana for extra defense, and Kyra realizes this power-up feels just as tough as the garden leather armor he's used to wearing. Right then, the kid asks Rhea if the armor's magic would actually kick in if he got slammed into a tree. She thinks about what he asked and starts to wonder if magic really works every time, since every situation is totally different. Kaida realizes the armor is constantly soaking up PMs, and the girl agrees that it's getting stronger right along with him, which is going to be a total game changer in a fight. The guy is totally shocked that a beastly horn like that can still get even stronger. She's super curious and asks if he knew his uniform could do that, but he's pretty sure nobody who ever wore this armor had a clue. Everything finally clicks for him, so he asks Rhea if he can master acceleration magic right now to save his life, and she tells him to just keep pushing because it's totally going to work out. Cade's determined to keep training while they hunt monsters in the deep woods, and the girl is totally on board, smiling because she's so proud of him. Out of nowhere, the guy slams right into a tree in the most hilarious way, making the girl freak out and ask if he's okay, but he just acts super cool and tells. Kaya locks in and charges forward, slamming into the trees over and over just to build up his momentum. He clenches his fists to show off his strength and confidently says he's got this, while she looks at him in total shock, feeling both worried and super impressed. The guy scans the area and asks Rhea where the closest monster is, so she focuses and points the way as he charges off totally hyped up. He's tearing through the forest and finally feels like he's getting the hang of this magic. But there's a catch. He can't steer while he's boosting, and he realizes he can just flick it on and off to avoid a total wreck, knowing he has to hit the switch and then kill it instantly. Out of nowhere, a massive beast pops up right in front of him, baring its fangs and locking eyes like it's totally ready to fight. The monster perks up his huge ears and scans the deep forest until a sudden flash of light catches his eye. Kaida darts between the trees to sneak up on the beast, and the second it spots him, the monster completely loses it from pure terror. The scared beast lashes out with its paw, but he dodges instantly, showing off his crazy skills and acceleration magic. He lands a heavy kick right in the monster's gut and gets super hyped, realizing his speed magic is actually a killer weapon that gives him a massive edge. The monster groans as it gets sent flying into a tree, while the guy sticks a perfect landing to show off his skills. Grinning nervously, the guy asks Rhea what she thinks of his performance, and she tells him his moves look so weird it's either going to be a total fail or a massive win. But he stays hyped and says everything's fine as long as he can use magic. Before she could even finish her sentence, she spotted something crazy right in front of her. Rhea suddenly tells the guy to hold up because she senses a super weird and powerful magic nearby, putting them both on high alert as he realizes this is actually a huge deal. The guys follow that weird energy and peek through the bushes, only to see something totally insane. Deep in the woods, they find a massive round plate with a weird symbol that's definitely hiding a secret. And since the guy thinks it's some ancient ruins from Herrera, the two of them stare at the stove in total shock, finally realizing how big of a deal this thing is. Rhea points out the weird-looking lid, and the boy gets super hyped. The crew finally pries open the giant stone lid and sees a staircase heading straight down into a super mysterious area. Kaida and Rhea stare at the stairs in total shock, completely speechless as the mysterious vibe pulls them in. Back at the estate, Lassiason leans in and asks the heroes if they found anything cool while they were out exploring the forest. Rhea shouts that the whole thing was a total snooze fest to try and cheer everyone up, but the guy cuts her off and tells her to let him explain everything clearly. He tells them about a forest entrance 12 kilometers southwest that's sealed with a lid just like this one, and it gives them a huge new lead. He says that when they got down there, they found underground ruins that were totally trashed. Kayada says he found some burnt-up stuff, but besides that, it was all just a bunch of worthless scrap metal. Losia-san is totally hooked and explains that there was something super valuable there that really fired up their imagination. He nods and says it was an artifact just like the pedestal they're all thinking about right now. It all finally clicks for him, and he realizes this is exactly why that weird stuff happened during their adventure. Kaida explains that back in the dungeon, they found pieces of a massive magic stone that used to sit on the pedestal, which just makes the whole situation even more suspicious. He says that once they checked the pedestal, they realized it's just one piece of a massive system, making this whole situation way more complicated. He realizes they won't get any more info from this gadget, but he's sure this spot was just a backup base, and the real secrets are hidden in a totally different main system. The woman sitting across from him says all this weird stuff is happening because that massive magic stone was finally shut down. The girl goes totally quiet, holding her chin as she really lets those words sink in. He figures that even if she knows the truth, there's no way she's going to tell them anything. He realizes Lassia has no idea what this thing is, and after a long silence, she looks right at him and says she's got a question. She reminds him that he already called those underground ruins a support facility. She gets dead serious, thinking Kayet or Ria have some crazy tracking skills, so she just cuts straight to the point. The guy is totally freaking out, but Ria stays low-key, sipping her drink and watching the drama unfold without drawing any attention. He starts thinking Lakasen might actually be right since they share the same power, and now he's low-key panicking about saying too much. He's totally shocked Kaida figured everything out from just a few words, especially since his secret skill was supposed to be completely hidden. She bows her head and tells him he doesn't have to spill every detail, which totally builds a vibe of trust between them. Lacey Asan says they just need to know the team's powers for emergencies, but since they cured that Herrera mind disease so fast, she's totally sure someone is hiding a crazy high analysis skill. The kid just smirks without saying a word, leaving his friend totally stunned by the vibe. And while his buddy is low-key stressed that Losia-san might use this info for something bad, the boy is actually hyped about how sharp and clever she really is. He shuts his eyes to think, deciding that spilling everything to Losia-san and trusting the guild is his best bet. Then he finally tells him that his special skill is the proof behind his. She smirks and tells him she'll get the directions to the ruins later just to keep the conversation going, while he just stares at her like he has no clue what she's thinking. She reminds him she's already said it. Only a handful of adventurers and guild members actually know what's going on with this mess. Lesia tells them the whole squad needs to be in the loop, and the guy stares at her, realizing just how serious this actually is. The girl in glasses is dead serious when she says she can't spill the beans until the big bosses give her the okay, which is totally stressing him out while she tells him to just stay patient and not get his hopes up. He thanks her for having his back, and since he finally opened up about his secrets, Keita decides she can actually trust him. He's sure these secrets are the real problem, and is just hoping the big bosses let him spill everything, especially since he thinks the massive Ordine labyrinth is their best bet. The boy on the bed looks at Ria and asks what kind of earthquake trick that was, totally curious about the plan she came up with. This girl is literally floating on her bed when she says good morning, and the guy just jokes that she has a totally crazy way of sleeping. As they walk through the city, the boy asks Ria if she's okay, or if she bumped her head while sleeping, but she just smiles and says she's fine. She just wishes her. He knows it's totally impossible, but her positive vibes actually make him crack a smile. Out of nowhere, the whole city started shaking, and everyone, even our heroes, was totally freaked out. The guy checks the situation and asks if the grill is alright, but Ria just laughs it off and says she's used to it, leaving him totally hyped by how tough she's become. She asks where they're headed today, and he's super hyped to tell her they're hitting the guild to explore the labyrinth. Out of nowhere, a voice asks for Kade, and the whole group spins around to see this total stranger. The guy is super confused and asks what's going on, so the girl explains she works for the guild and invites them inside, but he just stares at her trying to figure out what her deal is. This girl walks up to the counter with a stack of papers, saying Archon Fiona Sain is looking for some backup to help explore those brand new ancient ruins. He's super skeptical and asks if she knows anyone in the guild, but she just smiles and says she's totally clueless about the whole thing. The guild worker says the pay is up for debate, and he can totally say no, but the kid is secretly buzzing because he really wants to explore those new ruins alone. Kayata asks if this guy is one of the guild's big shots, but the girl just smiles and tells him he's wrong. He's thinking about how this guy picked the absolute worst moment to step up and run. He introduces Lassia Sane, who says the rest of his squad definitely needs to hear this too. Staring at the tablet, he's pretty sure the Lassia sons are behind this, but even if they aren't, those new ruins look like a total win, so he thanks the girl for the intel and says he'll try to meet up with her soon. Kaida and Ria walked up to the building, and while Ria was totally blown away, Kaida just rolled his eyes and called it a magnificent tofu house. But she didn't catch the sarcasm and asked him to repeat it. The guy told them to keep moving, but Ria suddenly stopped dead in his tracks. She screamed for him to stop the second she saw that creepy magic leaking from the door. He thought it was a total trap and asked if it was safe, so she scanned the area and said it looked clear, even though she still felt like something was off. She realized the door was the key, but she still couldn't figure out the pattern of what was happening. He thought it was super cool that she used a magic tool instead of a regular intercom, but he still told Ria to stay on guard just in case things got wild. The door swings open and a girl steps out acting like she knows them, leaving Kaede and Ria totally shocked and on edge. The hero spots a girl with fox ears and a tail who's super hyped to see them, saying they look exactly like the stories she's heard. She points out that their squad looks pretty weird, which makes the heroes lock their eyes on her instantly. The guy realized right away that this fox was actually a beastman, and totally caught off guard, he asked if she was Fionason. She flashed a huge grin and cheered that it was really her, leaving the guy totally stunned. He heard she'd actually picked him for a secret mission to the ruins, and the fox girl's ears twitched because she was totally listening in. Wagging her tail, she totally agreed and told him this had nothing to do with the guild. It was actually her own personal favor. She leaned in and told him the ruins weren't what he expected, making sure he knew she was the one who found them, leaving the guy totally stunned. He realized Lucia-san was definitely behind this, figuring the guild tracks info just like their cards. But she found a sneaky loophole to leak him the top secret details. He reached out and asked her for the scoop on the ruins, but she got totally serious and warned him that the place was crawling with scary monsters and deadly traps, The fox girl sighed and admitted she tried to clear this place solo before, but she had to run for her life, which totally blew the guy's mind. The guy asked if she was really trying to push her limits as an archaeologist, but she just laughed and pumped her fist, saying her stamina is actually insane. She told him to drop the formal act since she's not some big shot, and he totally gave in and agreed with her. Fione-san flashed a big smile and said those artifacts would let them win, which really hyped the whole team up. The fox girl says she just needs Ria's hairpin, but Ria gets terrified, grabs Katie and screams that she's never handing it over. She calms the girl down and tells her she just can't handle it. Even if she wants to, a super powerful artifact like this can only be used by one person at a time, Fiona. He starts wondering if Ria's hairpin is actually a secret artifact and what its limits are, while the girl just clings to the boy and pouts like she's totally offended. He asks Fiona if these artifacts are locked to their users, and she explains that only the super powerful ones do that, especially the high-class gear that picks its owner the moment it's... Curious asks about the rank of Ria's hairpin, and while Fionason says she needs to study it more, she admits it's the most perfect magic tool she's ever seen. The fox girl says the hairpin is actually insane, and Ria looks up, totally caught off guard. She's feeling way better now and shouts about how cool her hairpin is, totally hyping everyone up. Fiona-san leans in and laughs along with her, which finally makes the guy crack a smile. He asks Fione what his prize is for scouting the ruins, and she tells him he can keep every single treasure he finds, as long as he stays down there for at least 3 days. The dude was totally caught off guard and asked if it was even normal to get such a crazy good deal. She just smiles and says it's totally fine because she only wants to check the item out, and since she can barely even analyze artifacts anyway, she doesn't even want to keep them. He realizes her actual major is archaeology, not artifacts, and he's low-key shocked she can even analyze them at all. He admits he has no clue about these ruins and asks her to be his guide, and she's totally down to teach him everything. The fox girl just looked away and said she didn't have any secret guild info this time, so she couldn't do it. He finally realized that this was the exact loophole Lucia-san was using. Kaeda's worried about sharing secrets without permission, but since he's on a private mission, she can't stop him from exploring the ruins, and honestly, he's getting a way better deal than she is. Kaeda realizes he has to keep Fione safe while they raid the ruins, so he gets serious and asks when they're finally moving out. She holds up a finger with a grin and tells them they can start the second they're ready. The guy says it's way too sudden, but Fionason is super confident and tells him it's better to just end it right now. She looks away and says that for all they know, they can probably just put this whole thing off for another 10 years. He realizes this is another freak phenomenon, like a flowing bomb with no timer, and as Ria stares at the girl in shock, he tells her they gotta move right now. Our 3 heroes follow a trail past a massive waterfall and through the woods, heading straight into a giant cave. The girl beams and yells that they've finally made it, while the guy points out the cave looks just like a natural hot spring, but the fox girl is totally wiped out and feeling pretty on edge. Kaeda asks Ria if she feels anything weird, and after thinking about it, Ria says she can feel a ton of magic tools inside her, but none of them are actually that big. He's pretty sure any magic gear left inside is totally trashed, so he's betting that any items he finds are actually just hidden traps. The guy asks Fione what the move is, and she tells him he's actually the safest one for the job, while Ria starts jumping around shouting Kaede's name to get everyone hyped. The guy admits they might be right, and Fione just smiles as she hands the boy a mysterious magic item. The guy stares at it totally confused and asks what kind of magic tool this thing even is. She gives Ria a big hug from behind with a grin, saying they're ready to follow as the adventure kicks off, while the fox girl adds that he'll be setting traps the whole way to keep them safe. Fiona just laughs and says falling behind was the plan all along. Then she shoves the guy forward while a terrified Kaida realizes he's being sent in totally alone. The boys stood right outside the cave feeling the hype, while the guy and the girls locked eyes, everyone totally pumped to see what would happen next. Kaida checks out his new magic tool, thinking it's perfect for setting traps, and he wonders if that girl knows how insane his defense is, or if she just handed him something totally legendary. He realized the tool could block one fatal hit, meaning she totally expected him to get wrecked, and she just gave a nervous smile once she saw he'd figured her out. Kaida raises an eyebrow and asks Fiona if she has any special gear or moves to disarm the traps, but Fiona just sighs and says she's got nothing, leaving Ria totally stunned. Suddenly, she flashes a huge smile and squeezes her fist tight, telling him she's heard all about his epic wins from the guild and is totally fangirling over him. The fox girl's eyes glow as she tells the boy everything's fine, and Ria backs her up to cheer Kate up, but he stays totally silent because he can feel something bad is about to go down. He grits his teeth, realizing those two are a perfect match, and since he's the healer, he can't let Ria and Fionason charge ahead without him. He finally gives them the green light, and Ria and Fionason cheer so hard that the whole vibe instantly gets super hyped. Ria suddenly gasps and stops, pointing out a magic trap on the left that's somehow safe for Cade. But he's totally confused and asks her what she means by safe. The guy sighs and closes his eyes, thinking they should just avoid her, but then he suddenly steps on a switch that makes a loud click. He takes a closer look and is totally shocked to find an actual physical switch. Out of nowhere, Ria shouts Katie's name at the top of her lungs. Right then, a hidden trap fires an arrow straight at him, but he doesn't even realize it yet. The arrow smacks into his cloak but just bounces right off, leaving the girls staring in total shock and fear because they have no idea what just happened. Taida whips around and his jaw drops when he sees an arrow right there. He tells her it was just a total accident, but she's just relieved he's okay and can't believe how insane his defense is, while he just gives a smirk and says he's... Ria looks super guilty and apologizes, explaining she couldn't sense a thing since it wasn't magic. But the guy just smiles and tells her not to worry because he's totally fine. He spots a mix of magic and physical traps, but since the physical ones are so weak, he figures it's just bait to make them drop their guard, and that really has Cade on edge. He stares at the hand and uses his magic scan to figure out exactly what kind of traps are hiding around them. He blasts his magic forward, and suddenly, a ton of hidden traps pop up out of nowhere, leaving the girls totally stunned. He makes a face and suggests just blasting all the traps with magic to set them off, while Fiona gives a shaky smile and agrees it's a great idea. He and Ria reach out and fire off the spell, making every single trap blow up and turn the sky into pure chaos. Kaida pulls herself together and asks Ria to find the magic traps, and she says she can, pointing out that one is literally right next to him. He's totally bummed out because if he can't even see the traps, there's no way he can use his analysis skill on them. Fiona warns that these magic traps are perfectly hidden, and since she can't find even one of them, their journey just got way more dangerous. The girls share a super happy look, and Fiona beams while telling Ria how awesome she is, while Ria just laughs it off, making the guy realize he should definitely count on her too. He asks how to disable the magic traps, so the girls turn around and Ria tells him he literally just needs to step on her. She promises that she and Fiona will be right there because the path is loaded with traps he'll have to dodge if he doesn't want to step on them. The guy gets a little nervous and asks Fiona what's on her mind, wondering what would actually go down if he tripped a magic trap. She sighs and says it all depends on the trap, because they can spawn monsters or even make it rain, but Fiona warns that last time they just sucked her energy dry, which has Cade feeling pretty stressed. Fiona looks dead serious and says they should steer clear, but Ria keeps insisting they should just stomp all over them. He decides to trust Ria since she's way more of a magic expert than him, and even though he's nervous, Kaida agrees to step on a magic trap just once, which totally blows the girls' minds. He raises his foot to trigger the trap, and the girls immediately back away as the whole vibe gets super intense. He let out a nervous breath, bracing himself for the total disaster that was about to hit. He stomped right on the magic trap, just waiting for the whole place to start rattling and hissing. The guy just stared ahead totally confused since absolutely nothing went down. He asked the girls why the heck nothing was working. Ria started screaming that she was right all along. Fiona just looked. Ria explains that the boy's power completely wiped out the magic in the trap, which was already pretty weak since it was built to stay hidden. He asks her in total shock how she just vanished, wondering how the power he let loose could just wreck everything in sight. They keep heading down the hallway until they spot a massive wooden door covered in crazy riddles. Kaida turns to Fiona and asks if they're actually going inside. He's worried the whole room might be rigged with deadly traps. She tells him these ruins were just a normal... He stares at the door and figures if it's safe, there shouldn't be any traps, so he tells the girls to go ahead and check it out. They threw the doors open and stepped inside, only to find the entire room was completely empty. The group looks around and the guy says the room looks cool, but the girl says the patterns are a mess, so he turns to her and asks if they both see that the room is actually totally empty. Fiona looks dead serious and warns them that the guy who lived here escaped the facility easily, so even if the room looks empty, he probably left behind some traps to wreck the object. The guy sighs and complains that this is literally the worst thing ever, saying he's already ready to quit, while the girl gives a nervous smile and tells him to stop being so negative to keep him going. She tells the guy that since the hallway is full of traps, there's definitely some epic treasure hidden nearby. But even without the loot, she thinks these ruins are a massive deal just to study. The guy thinks the ruins look totally empty at first, but he knows a nasty surprise could be waiting just like at Herrera. So Kaya tells the girl not to worry because he asks if they're done with the room, but she says she'll be back later for the small stuff, promising they'll have plenty of food if he can just clear out the... He turns to her with a big grin and says they should head straight for the deepest part first. The boys were super hyped as they explored the ancient ruins, while Fiona stayed focused and scribbled down every important detail in her notebook. He led the way down a tight brick hallway while the girls followed close behind, scanning every inch of the place. The guy noticed the hallway was getting tighter and tighter, and as the girls agreed, Fiona felt the whole vibe shift because the ceiling stayed super high, making their adventure feel even more mysterious. Raya's just checking out the area when she suddenly stops dead in her tracks because something feels totally off. She shouted to Katie that she felt some creepy magic nearby and pointed right toward the source, leaving Fiona totally blown away by how fast she picked up on it. The boy asked if this weird magic was different from the traps they'd already run into. She thought about it for a second and said she wasn't sure, but the spell felt pretty. The girl told them they should back off and let the guy stay out in front. He kept his mouth shut knowing it was for the best, and as he marched forward, he stomped right on the voiceover while getting totally hyped up. Rhea felt something was off and screamed that the trap was triggered, leaving Fiona stunned by her quick thinking, as he realized just how bad things were about to get. Kaida realized his magic wasn't strong enough to break the trap, so he nervously asked the girls what kind of trap was actually going off. Suddenly, everything starts shaking like crazy, and the group is totally freaked out because they have no clue what's creeping up right behind them. A massive bang made them spin around in total terror, only to see a giant puck charging down the narrow hallway straight at them. The guys were totally losing it as that massive puck, which was literally as tall as the hallway, started picking up some serious speed. The girls were totally freaked out by what they saw, their eyes going wide as the danger closed in on them. Adrenaline hit them hard and they all turned at once, sprinting away as that giant metal puck gained on them. Fiona screams at the kid to find out what's going on, and as he draws his sword to shield the girls, he thinks about how Rhea found it super weird that this trap was a mix of both magic and physical stuff. He realized this was a total trap, and screamed at the girls to just keep running. Kitty uses her speed magic to zip right past all those flaming arrows flying at her. He triggered every single trap on purpose to take the hits himself so the girls wouldn't get hurt. He was down to his last weapon, a massive hunk of metal that was flying straight at the girls super fast. The guy blurs right past Fiona, moving so fast she can't even get a word out. The guy warns her he's about to mess with the metal puck, but Fiona screams that it's literally impossible to break that stuff. The guy swings his hand to cast a spell and yells back to the girl that he isn't trying to destroy him, he's actually just going to stop him. He slams his shield into the ground and a massive stone wall erupts to block the danger. That massive metal beast slams into the stone wall and starts smashing right through it with a deafening roar. The guy is totally lost and can't believe his eyes. The girls just stare in absolute. The trap picks up speed and smashes right through the stone wall, roaring as it charges straight for the boys. Our hero's face went totally white as he realized his plan was falling apart, and things were looking completely hopeless. He screams at the girls to run for their lives, but they're already sprinting away, totally terrified and crying. Kaya whips around to see the danger closing in, thinking the puck is only picking up speed because of the hill, and he's totally shocked that his magic can't stop it. He sees they're way too slow, so he just scoops Fiona up and screams at everyone to keep sprinting while she stares at him in total shock. The guy screams for Rhea to book it, and she doesn't even hesitate before hitting her top speed. Fiona is totally freaked out and asks what he's doing, but the guys just floor it, making her let out a terrified scream as things get seriously dangerous. He sees they've made some serious distance and yells up to Rhea, who's already flying way ahead, to check for a crossroad, and she quickly shouts back that there's one on. The guys look ahead and finally spot a path leading right into the room on the left. Kaida's holding Fiona and asks Rhea if there are monsters inside, but she says there aren't any. Instead, there's something else, and Kaida suddenly spots something super weird out of the corner of his eye. He spotted something on the ceiling that magic couldn't even touch, and it was definitely a trap. He knows it's a total trap, but he thinks running away is just as dangerous, so he's not doing either one. Ria screams for Kayday to watch out, and he totally panics when he sees the trap chasing them down. Fiona was about to speak, but the guy totally read her mind and ordered the girls inside, where they slowed down just enough to dodge a crash and fly into the room at the very last second. Right then, a massive metal trap zoomed through the room and triggered a mechanism as it flew past. He stuck the landing in the room while still holding the girl, and Ria hopped right in after them like it was nothing. Out of nowhere, a massive crash echoes right behind them. A giant metal door slams shut, totally cutting off their only way out, and the guys whip around, completely freaked out by. He sets the girl down, and as she realizes they're totally trapped, he bolts for the door and tells the girls to stay put. He slams the metal door with a massive blast of pressure magic, but the thing barely even gets a scratch. Realizing nothing is working, the guy drops his hand with a heavy sigh and admits it's way too hard, while the girls just stare in total shock, having no clue how to get out of this mess. All of a sudden, Ria knew something was totally off when she heard a super creepy creaking noise. She freaked out and told the guy something was going down. He immediately asked what was happening, and the fox girl just watched the whole thing with a curious look. The guy realized something was off and turned toward the noise, looking totally freaked out. Out of nowhere, that metal hatch he was watching swings open, and these creepy metal things start crawling out. This massive metal rock slams out of the hatch with a roar, and the guys have no clue what they're even looking at. A whole army of massive tank-tread robots started pouring out of the hatch behind him, and the guy was totally terrified, realizing he needed to get out of there fast. As the dust clears, the guys spot a massive relic called a Type 3 Crusher, which is basically a giant boxy robot that rolls on tank tracks instead of wheels. Kayada's face went totally serious as he realized he had to fight, and he straight up admitted that these guys looked like a massive problem. The guy sized up the robots, gripped his sword, and told the girls they had to take down these ancient machines. Out of nowhere, the robots charged at them full speed, and while Ria screamed a warning, the terrified boys scrambled to figure out their next move. Revised, the kid realizes these massive robots are trying to flatten them, but they're honestly moving like snails, so Kayana asks Ria how much he needs to buff his spear to win, and he asks her again in total shock, realizing they need to stall for time so they can come up with a better plan. Kaida spots the robots and tells Ria to keep Fiona safe, then he uses his speed magic to blast straight toward them for the attack. The girls gasp in shock, keeping their eyes glued to him as they realize he's totally locked in. He grits his teeth, realizing his magic sword is basically useless against that super tough metal. He figures out those crystals in the middle of their bodies are the weak spots, so Kaidi lunges forward and drives his sword straight through the robot's core. The other robot froze up and just stared, but our guy was feeling hyped and knew their moves, so he shouted for the bot to come at him. That ancient machine sensed a threat and lunged straight for the guy, but then it suddenly changed its mind and swerved hard to the right. The girls were totally shocked by what they saw, and the guy bragged that even if he couldn't break their armor, he could still freeze them in place, making Ria look at her friend. He turned around with a kind smile and told her not to sweat it, since that's exactly why she needs security in the first place. He stared at the robots and told the girls they needed to get out of that room while they still had the chance. Kaida locks in, raises his sword, and triggers his stone spear magic, making massive stone pillars slam down from the ceiling to form a total shield. The guy's magic blasted the metal door open in a shower of sparks, giving everyone a massive surge of hope that they could finally escape this nightmare. Kaida's finally free and is totally hyped to keep the adventure going. Ria's all in with a massive smile and a fist pump, but poor Fiona is just dragging behind them in total silence because she's completely wiped out. She's totally stunned by his insane powers, but he just smirks and says he's just a traveler, while Ria spots something cool up ahead and gasps in total awe. She grabs a mysterious rock from the ground and tells the boy it's magic with a huge grin, and the man nearby is definitely hooked on what she found. He stares at the stone, realizing it's probably the power source for those weird machines, and offers to take them with him to figure out how they work. The guys are back in those same hallways, marching forward and feeling totally hyped for what's next. Suddenly, the guy spots something and starts filming with a look of pure terror, while Ria is so shocked that she just freezes in place. He looks at the massive pile of wreckage and says things are about to get seriously messy. He's wondering if this is even the same room since they were just in the hallway, thinking those creepy machines must have trashed the place, and Ria nods along as she looks at all the... Suddenly, he hears his girlfriend sounding totally heartbroken, so he whips around with a look of pure worry on his face. He found Fiona sobbing on the floor, and she told him those super important papers were ripped to shreds and gone for good. The girl completely loses it and screams about why anyone would make a trap that destroys their own building, wondering what the point even was, while the guy just sighs and admits he's wondering the exact same thing. Ria suddenly sneaks up behind him and calls his name, sounding super worried, so he spins around and asks her what's up since he can tell something is totally wrong. She asks him to move some junk hiding a secret, and even though he's totally shocked, he's ready to jump in and help. She leads him straight to the massive hunk of metal that almost took them out, and he stares at it with a mix of hype and pure hate as he remembers that crazy close call. He asks if he should move it, but she's confused since it looks like junk, until she points at the floor and says there's something hidden underneath that they have to see. The guy looks totally shocked, tilting his head as he points out the exact spot on that massive chunk of metal. He stops for a second, realizes he should probably just take the thing off, and after wiping his forehead with his sleeve, the girl totally freaks out with joy at what she sees. She happily points at the giant sword crushed under the heavy metal, and the guy is so caught off guard he just freezes in place. The boy is totally stunned by what they found, and since Ria wants to make him happy, she tells him she'll grab it while reaching straight for the sword. But she can't even lift the sword because she knows she's just not strong enough to move it. The girl turns back to Katie looking super confused and admits he's actually really heavy. But he just reaches out his hand to help, totally ready to flex his strength. He picks up the massive sword like it's a feather, totally shocking himself with how light it feels, while the girl just stares in awe at his insane strength and skill. The guy tries to act cool while holding the sword, but it's actually way heavier than it looks. And Fiona is just staring in shock because she thinks he's lifting that massive. He's totally confused by her reaction and asks what's up, so she awkwardly tells him it's a gravity sword, even though she has no clue where it even came from. He asks again because he's totally shocked, and thinking back to what his girlfriend said, he wonders if some crazy magic is making the sword so heavy, and decides he needs to check it out. He takes a good look at the blade and realizes it's a total gravity beast that speeds up like crazy every time he swings it down. The guy is totally lost and asks about gravity again, his mind racing with wild ideas about how he can finally use this power to crush his enemies, while Ria stands right behind him trying to. Fiona is totally hyped because that sword looks insanely powerful. But she's never even heard of it, and can't wrap her head around how he's lifting something that heavy. She explains that only a few travelers were strong enough to lift the blade, but they already had weapons and didn't need it, so the guy takes one look and says he's got it all figured out. Once he snaps out of it, the guy asks if they need the sword for research since it looks super important, but she tells him it's actually not that rare, and he can just have it, so he happily takes it. Fiona flashes a huge grin and tells everyone they've done enough digging for one day, so it's time to head back to safety. Our guy was so hyped on the adventure that he totally lost track of time, while the girl admits she only needs him to set off all the traps and says they'll come back to raid. As she walks down the long hallway, she's totally hyped because so much went down today that she can barely process it all. She's got a massive grin because for once, everything is actually going her way, and she's honestly having the best time ever. Out of nowhere, Fiona steps on some hidden machinery, and the whole floor starts shaking like crazy, making her gasp as a massive rush of adrenaline hits her. The boys knew something was going down right away, and they started looking around totally freaked out as they realized how bad things actually were. Kaeda sounds totally exhausted as he turns to Fiona, who realizes they're stuck and finally admits she accidentally pressed something. Suddenly, a trap snaps and something massive slams down from the ceiling with a huge crash and sparks. But the guy doesn't even hesitate as he throws himself over the girls to take the hit. These are the same ancient machines they're fighting today, and as the boy remembers them, he realizes they finally have a new chance to strike. The guy just sighs like he's totally bored of fighting these robots, while the girl drops her ears in shame and apologizes for causing such a huge mess. Kayato just flashes a friendly smile and says everything's cool. But he's already wondering what to do next, since he's stuck making another big decision. He stares at the robots and realizes that in this cramped space, there's no way he can hit their crystals like he did before. Ria suddenly gets a huge idea and tells the boy to give his new sword a shot, her voice full of hope while he just stares back in total shock at her bold move. He was totally down for that, so he whipped out his new sword and got ready to test it, feeling more hyped by the second. Out of nowhere, the cars roared to life and charged straight at them, their engines sounding super scary. He completely ignored the danger and charged out with his new weapon gripped tight, while the girls watched him with total hope, knowing he'd definitely pull it off. Staring at the sword in total shock, the kid realized it wasn't slowing him down at all thanks to some crazy weightless magic, so he braced himself and got ready to go all out. He leaped high into the air and aimed right at the robots, knowing his massive sword would unleash its true power the second he swung it down for the finishing blow. He rips through the robots with everything he's got, and Keita is totally stunned by how much damage he just dealt. The kid realized this sword was way more destructive than any basic magic weapon, and it didn't just make him happy, it gave him a massive boost of confidence. One massive hit shatters the robots into scrap, sending metal and chunks of the ground flying everywhere as energy blasts in every direction. Sparks flew and ancient gears shattered everywhere as the girls watched in total terror, their jaws dropping because they couldn't believe what was happening right in front of them. These guys are grinning ear to ear, bragging that they love this sword more than ever, and it finally feels like it's truly his. After making it back from Tofu, the guys finally relaxed at the cozy estate, sipping on hot tea to recover from their wild adventure. Fiona is all smiles with her ears up and tail wagging as she thanks the guys for their hard work, telling them not to sweat the small stuff while she hypes up their next big move. Rhea turns to the guy and asks if the job is done, but he just looks back and says, not yet, knowing their real mission is actually figuring out how that artifact got destroyed. Kaya looks over at Fiona and jokes that it's a total shame she doesn't have anything to do with those earthquakes. She gives him a huge grin and says the ruins have nothing to do with the earthquake, but he's totally let down because he was hoping for a way cooler answer. The guy is totally lost and asks if all their hard work was for nothing. But Fiona just smiles and tells him he's dead wrong because they definitely didn't waste their time. Kaeda has no clue who she's talking about and asks if that's even a real person's name. The fox girl just tilts her head, points a finger, and confirms that, yeah, his name is Radam Kos van Orteon. Right then, Kaeda's face totally changes as he starts to realize he actually knows that name. He remembers that only nobles have last names in this world, and since the guy's name literally includes Ortheon, the name of the city, he asks the girl if this man is the local lord and realizes he better start showing some major respect. Fiona flashes a smile and convinces the guy that's not the ruler's name, but just the heir's. And honestly, nobody in this city has anything good to say about him. He's looking super nervous because he just realized that literally everyone here hates this guy's guts. She says it's been about a month since the ruler Forzil Sama headed out of the country. Fiona looks down and explains that Radamkos became the lord's deputy and started charging massive taxes for no reason, even stealing from regular shops and killing innocent people on fake charges because he... Kayai is totally stunned, and the boy wonders why he isn't a criminal for killing people. But Fiona explains that since it was an official duel, their society says he didn't break any laws. He remembers a woman telling him that in this world, taking out your opponent in a duel isn't even a crime. It's just how things work. He finally snaps out of it and asks how this guy is linked to the earthquakes, and she reveals that Radamkos is the one who banned the guild from saying a word, which totally catches. Fiona admits it's just her theory, but she's convinced he's the one who shut down the earthquake investigation and stole tax money, making life miserable for everyone, including her. He finally gets what she meant about their next move, and even though he knows the deal, he wants her to say exactly what she wants him to do to this person. She freezes up, clutching her chest, and tells him straight up that he needs to defeat her. She gives a little smile and straight up admits she'd actually be happy if he finished him off. He takes a close look at her and realizes she's being totally serious, especially when he sees her hands shaking and balled into fists. Kaida shuts her eyes, realizing there's a ton of secret hate and bad blood behind all of this. He asks if the guy will become a criminal for killing him, and she says yeah, but this jerk always mocks poor people and uses duels as a legal excuse to take them out. He realized he could use his E-rank title as a cover, and she instantly caught on and agreed with him. He totally gets that in this world, rank equals power, and he's pretty sure he's the only adventurer left who's still stuck at E-rank. He finally realizes that the guy crushing everyone with taxes and the one destroying ancient relics are actually the same person, and while he knows he has to take him down, he stops to seriously plan his next move. He asks Fiona for a moment to clear his head, and she's totally happy to give him some space. While walking through the city with Raya, Kaya is weighing the offer to take out the Lord's deputy, and even though he trusts Fiona's story, he's gotta see some proof for. He decides to hit the city to gather some intel and meet them face to face. But then he realizes he has no idea what they even look like. Out of nowhere, something crazy catches his eye in the city, and he spots this big, loud dude making a total scene. Output. He stares them down and says he totally thought the dude on his knees was holding a bag of cash. Nastily, clutching the bag, mocks him and asks if he... Kaida was totally shocked to see Radomko standing right there, especially since he didn't think it'd be that easy to spot him. Kaida took one look at the guy making a scene and realized he was the same dude who mentioned Fiona earlier. Kaida sees a poor guy shaking like a leaf because of Radamkos' scary demands, so he asks a dude nearby what's happening. but the man just asks if he's... The guy explains that this is Radomko's classic move. He finds a target and jacks up their taxes 10 times higher just to ruin them, and if they can't pay, he'll seize their property and snatch their shops once they're totally broke. The stranger warns him to never stop for Dom Coast, because if he thinks you're weak, he'll frame you for a bunch of crimes and force you into a duel to the death. He admits that anyone who tried to stop him ended up dead, and looking at Radomkos, he finally realizes that the rumors were right. This guy is a total monster. Kaina realized the rumors were actually true, and this guy really did wreck the artifact. The stranger was totally freaking out, saying he needed Forzo-sama to come back right now because it was Red Amkos, and he was totally disgusted that these poor commoners had the nerve to call him a villain. So he demanded to know if they were ready to pay for their big... Radomko throws up his hand with a smug look and challenges the guy to a duel, making the dude realize he's absolutely cooked while Kaida watches the whole thing closely. He remembers the guy warning him to stay far away, or he'd get dragged right into their shady business. The stranger is totally lost and asks what he means, but the guy just says he's sure that nobody actually wants to die. Radomko says he'll let the whole thing go if the guy pays a massive tax, but the man is shaking with fear because he knows he doesn't have that kind of cash. Kaida's getting seriously mad watching this mess unfold, but then he suddenly hears Ria's quiet voice right behind him. He whips around and sees a girl with tears in her eyes, and she straight up tells him he smells totally gross. The whole city burst into laughter all at once. Even Kaida couldn't help but give a mocking smirk, and Radomko was so humiliated that his face turned bright red as he started. This guy says the smell is actually super fancy and not gross at all. Then he decides to target the little girl for the duel instead of the man. But Kaida reacts instantly and trips him before he... The guy hits the ground screaming his lungs out while Ria ducks behind him looking totally panicked, and now everyone in the city is starting to freak out and get terrified of this dude. He knows he's kind of trash at RPGs, but there's no turning back now, so he admits the perfume stinks while swearing the smell isn't coming from him. Kaida's too sketched out to touch the glove with his hands, so he lifts it with his sword and glares while saying the word is Radomkos. Ria is totally confused by her friend's weird vibe and asks where his cloak went, so he explains he ditched it to look weak and blend in, while Kaida warns her to stay back because things are about to get crazy. Suddenly, Fiona pops out of nowhere and asks what all the drama is about, making Kaida so hyped to see her that she just chucks the guy's glove away while Ria watches in total shock. He turns to Fiona and tells her she's right on time, asking her to keep Ria safe and saying she definitely already knows the answer to her request. She flashes a huge relieved smile and tells him she's totally on board to help him handle this crazy situation. Radomko jumps up and starts swearing, yelling that he's finally done it, and while the whole room gets super tense, Kaida just stands there looking totally clueless. The kid points right at his head, looking totally fired up as he asks if he's ready to throw down, convinced that a spoiled brat like Radomkos can't touch him because... When he heard that, Radomkos just smirked like he was already cooking up a super evil plan. He screamed at the crowd watching him, yelling that he was about to show them exactly what happens when you try to mess with him. He raises his fist and challenges Cade to a duel right then and there, while the guy in 10th place just watches and says everything is going exactly as planned. Radomko points right at a soldier and tells him he's the second for this duel, and while the guy says he's got it, Kaida just stands back and watches the whole thing go down. The guard just sighed and gave up on the whole mess. But then Cade suddenly gasped as she remembered something that could change everything. He suddenly realized this was the exact same scary guy he'd just been talking to. The man stopped dead in his tracks when he realized his secret was out. He was way stronger than a D rank, while the guard just stood there with his head down, totally clueless about what to do next. Kaida's scared the fight's gonna get shut down, so he catches Radomkos' eye, and the guy turns around looking totally hooked. Kaida flashed a nervous grin and gave a quick nod, letting everyone know he was ready to throw down. The crowd started swarming the guard while waiting for him to talk, and he totally froze up, trying to figure out his next move. He suddenly slams his hand against his chest and shouts that he's witnessing the duel, and seeing how much everyone hates Radomko just makes Kaida even more furious. He tells Radomko that if he wins, those tax hikes are history, and the guy agrees right away but adds a brutal twist. If he wins, he's taking every single thing Kaya. He's dead serious when he says this bet is a total waste of time because he's definitely going to win anyway. The guy asks one more time if he's really not going to quit, but Radomko just says that winning is the only thing that matters. Radomko bows his head and brags that once he wins, he's coming for that commoner and the girl next. Cade was ticked off that his friends were hurt, but he still decided to step up and duel. The guard throws his hand up to signal the start and tells both fighters to get ready. Radomko drops into a fighting stance and gets ready to strike, while the hero just glares at him with total suspicion. Kaida watches with a huge frown as the guy tells him he's actually letting him say his final goodbyes. This guy looks totally pissed but super confident as he brags about being a C-ranked traveler, telling the kid he better put on a good show. He's totally freaking out because Kaida knows he's risking everything, and he definitely didn't expect to go up against a C-ranker. Radamkos doesn't even wait. He just leaps up and charges straight at the guy to start the duel. He swings his sword and almost lands a hit, but the other guy is way faster and just dodges it. Kaidi moves on pure instinct and slams a massive hit right into the enemy. The guy grunts from the sudden strike, and the boy realizes that the C-ranked traveler he knows was way tougher than this dude. The guy gets blasted back several meters from the hit, and he's clearly caught off guard by that insane power. Out of nowhere, the impact is so insane that Ched's sword just cracks and snaps right in half. The kid picks up the broken pieces in total shock, staring at Dolvaron-sama's shattered steel, and realizing his only good piece of gear is now completely trashed. Radomkos tries to push himself up after that hit, but he suddenly realizes he can't move a single muscle. The guy groans in pain and screams to the group that he thinks he just broke his bones. Suddenly, everyone in the city stopped dead to stare at the guy slumped over and getting totally mocked. Out of nowhere, everyone started yelling at once, telling Kaid to finish what he started. The kid walked up with his head down, telling the guy he'd finally met the win conditions, but Radomko was so scared he let out a massive hiccup right before the whole town started screaming and cheering for the boy's victory. Scared out of his mind, the guy reaches out and offers up all his cash, just begging him not to lay a finger on him. Katie saw the guy was totally desperate and begging for mercy right when he thought it was game over. He realized this was the perfect chance to squeeze some answers out of him. He straight up asked why. The guy on the ground is shaking with fear and blabs that he was just following orders. But Keita doesn't waste a second demanding to know who's really behind it all. Knowing his time is almost up, the guy gets super emotional and starts telling a story about John Doe, a member of the new Fire of Doom who he claims was the one who actually planned the whole heist. Kaida's never heard of this mysterious group before, so she looks at him totally confused and asks if that name is actually supposed to be that weird. Radakos gets totally freaked out as he remembers this massive, dangerous group that thinks every single artifact is evil. The guys are shaking with fear as they explain how the dad only cared about the brother and completely ignored him. Radhumkos is positive those artifacts are the real problem, so The kid is dying to know more about the organization, but the man says he's out of info, and that Redumkos just told him to have some faith. Kayeda starts to think the guy is actually legit, realizing that with the prince gone, these shady groups are just using him for their own dirty work. After hearing the truth, Kayada loses all pity and gets seriously ticked off, swinging his broken blade as he says goodbye to Radomkos for good. Out of nowhere, someone in the crowd screams Kate's name and tells him to wait, making him freeze just an inch away from his opponent's face. Right at the front of the pack, there's this super angry guy in armor and a beard who's clearly the one in charge. Kaida grips his broken sword and looks back at the man, while Radomko stands there totally confused and shocked to see a face from his past he hasn't seen in forever. Radomko suddenly screams that this man is his father, and the guy looks totally terrified as he realizes things are about to go south. One guard slams his right hand against his chest in a traditional salute, and shouts a greeting to Forza Al-Sama to show everyone just how much he respects her. Even with things getting intense, Keita looks back in total shock, realizing this guy is actually the real prince who headed off to the capital. Seeing how trashed the city and its people are, he realizes the prince is finally back. So Zell steps up with a determined look and tells the kid to put his sword away because there's no way he's letting Radomko die in a duel. The guy is hyped but low-key suspicious as he asks his dad to save him, while Kaidia tells the king that the only way to win this duel is to kill the opponent. Forzel's psalm says if winning means the enemy has to die, then it's gotta happen, but he's not the one who needs to finish them off. That's Kaida's job. The king gives the command, and suddenly a guard pulls out a massive square item covered in mysterious symbols that mean a whole lot of different things. Kaida looks at the object and realizes it's actually a magic tool that shows your stats, which gets him even more hyped up. The guard just hands the attribute over to Radomko on the ground, and while the guy is super hyped, he's also totally nervous because he has no clue what's about to happen next. He holds the magic up to the guy's chest, and suddenly the device flashes with a blinding light, proving it's finally working and totally freaking everyone out. Out of nowhere, the word bandit flashes on the magic device, leaving Radomkos and Kaida totally stunned because they never saw this twist coming. The guard stone cold tells the kid he's guilty, so Radomko starts losing it and screaming that he's innocent, while his dad just takes a deep breath and closes his eyes. The guy starts begging and swearing to his dad that he's innocent, but the prince is totally fuming and screams that if he really didn't do anything, he wouldn't be acting so guilty. Forzel screams at the guy, demanding to know where Matamkos is because he's absolutely not letting this happen on his watch. Radamkos tries to play it off, saying his little brother was being way too bossy, so he just locked him up and acts like it's totally normal. The whole city watched in silent horror while Kayada glared at the guy with pure disgust, thinking about how this was straight-up assault and a total crime against freedom. The kid wondered if this guy actually thought this was normal, especially when Asama face-palmed and called his son a total nightmare, leaving Radhankus shaking with fear because he knew exactly what was. Zell sounded totally disappointed as he sentenced the guy to death like a common bandit, telling him he could have lived a chill life if he just acted normal, while Radomko asked again. The guards move in to arrest him right then, and he totally loses it, screaming at his dad for mercy while the prince tells Koyad he's sorry for all the drama. The prince takes total responsibility for the mess, promising to lift the ban and make the guild go public immediately, all while giving the kid one last massive apology. Kayaida looks at the guy and realizes he's being a total pro, even though he's the one who's actually suffered the most. He finally throws his coat back on to get his classic look back, just as Ria and Fione show up with big smiles to tell him he did an awesome job. Fione is totally caught off guard and says she's just relieved everything worked out, while Kaeda gives a little smile and promises that as long as this guy is the boss, everything is going to be just fine. Seeing the girls look so worried, he warned them that the artifact drama wasn't over yet, and they had to stay ready for anything. He told the girls to head back to the guild since the info ban was finally over, feeling totally sure that La Chassan would spill all the secrets, and the girls were totally down for the plan. Once the boys arrived, they saw something on the stand that totally caught them off guard, and they weren't the only ones standing there in complete shock. Fione checked the news and was hyped that the info was already out, and the guy totally agreed that everything was moving crazy fast. He realized the news just dropped a few minutes ago and was totally blown away by how fast everything was moving. Taida turns around and spots Losia-san chatting with the girl, and when she catches him staring, she gives him a warm smile that totally makes his heart race. He looked back with a shaky smile, wondering if she'd been getting ready since the fight first started, right as Fione's happy face dropped the moment she waved hello. He realized this girl was a total pro who'd be a massive game changer later, and that thought finally gave him the confidence boost he needed for the future. The news is blowing up because the monsters near Orti and OM are suddenly acting totally insane. Everyone thinks it's happening because those ancient artifacts got smashed. On top of that, massive. It looks like some artifacts are actually stopping the volcano from blowing, since there's still no sign of it going off. A group fighting against them called the New Generation of the Fire of Doom just showed up and smashed the artifact to pieces. The search is still going strong, and by tomorrow morning, we might get a new lead that flips the whole story upside down. Looking at the info, he realizes the artifact he and Ria found was actually keeping the volcano from erupting, and breaking it is what triggered that massive earthquake. Fione turns to the guy and keeps it simple. They have to find the rest of the artifacts and protect them no matter what, and he's totally down with the plan. The girl rubs her chin and asks if they should check out the Orion ruins, but she's honestly not expecting to find anything useful there. He stares at her in total shock and asks why she thinks that, since research is always full of crazy twists. Fione rubs her temples and explains that compared to the ruins they just found, the stuff inside Ortheon is on a whole different level from a totally different time. She says there are tons of theories about these ruins, but she's convinced they're from a different civilization, and Kaida and Ria are listening so closely that they totally get it. He looks away, realizing that if this is all legit, they have zero clues where the rest of the artifacts are, and that's a huge problem for him. The guy stares at Ria, wondering why the new Fire of Death crew hasn't found the rest of the artifacts yet when it's only a matter of time before they're all destroyed. Out of nowhere, Ria spots something and whips her head around in total shock. The guys were standing just a few feet from the crowd when a whole new group of people suddenly swarmed the newsstand to see what was going down. He asks her if she can track down the artifact as long as the entrance is open, and Ria confidently tells him she's got it totally under control. Fione is totally lost and asks them what they're even talking about. Kaida's talking about these underground ruins with a magic-proof artifact inside, and she's convinced the seal is finally gonna break. Fione stares at the guy in total shock and asks why he's doing this, having no clue just how dead serious he actually is. He explains how this group is gonna hunt down the rest of the artifacts and take their time smashing them, saying it'd be way easier if he and Ria could just sense the magic shifting, but he reaches his hand out and says that if they're already being destroyed, this might actually be their big chance. Pointing at the crowd by the sign, the guy says those people are totally gonna warn their friends underground, and he asks the girls if they think he's right. The girls were totally stunned by what they just heard, staring at the guy with their jaws on the floor. Fione's totally hyped that they can finally break the seal, and Ria is just as pumped as she agrees with her. Seeing them so happy, the guy confirms she's right and says they'll figure out exactly where they are in no time. He slams his fist into his palm, looking totally fired up as he says that as soon as they find out, it's game on. They're finally gonna end all this craziness and make their mission actually matter. And he just flashes a huge grin because he knows things are finally looking up.